Chapter 869, Change. An unprecedentedly large mist ball formed on the mist giant's hand. This mist ball that was equal in size to the mist giant had a great visual effect. The mist giant lifted the mountainous mist ball and threw it at the enemy. A cold smile appeared on the other's icy face. He had fought against this move many times. The mist balls didn't have any other abilities than just power. In terms of power, he didn't believe that anyone could compare to him. The mist ball that flew towards him looked astonishing, but in his eyes, the other was just panicking. The more condensed the mist ball, the greater the threat. Such a large mist ball was unlikely to be dense and was a bluff. He charged towards the incoming giant mist ball. One punch. He only needed one punch to completely smash this giant mist ball. This was the other's last bit of confidence. If he could smash this, the other would completely collapse. Closer. Even closer. Now was the time. He took a deep breath. His shin power gathered rapidly at his right fist and he threw out a ferocious punch. Pew! Unlike the previous mist balls which shattered immediately on impact, this mist ball suddenly produced a strange suction force. His powerful punch seemed to hit empty air. It was so uncomfortable he almost spit out blood. It was strange. When these words jumped into his mind, the mist ball in front of him suddenly started to look familiar. An enormous mouth formed without any warning and swallowed him whole. The mist ball grew out 4 limbs, and a head. It was the mist giant. The other would never have thought that the mist ball that was thrown over was the disguised mist giant. He entered a place of darkness. A trap. The embarrassment on the mist giant's face grew. It was really embarrassing. His thick legs were half bent, his body leaning forward, his brows furrowed into one line. He seemed to be pushing, his body quickly became smaller, and soon, his body reached half of his previous side and could not shrink anymore. The pain on the mist giant's expression reached a peak. At this time, his behind suddenly perked up. Pop pop pop. 3 clear crisp sounds. A little condensed ball of mist shot out of the mist giant's behind like a cannonball. Where it passed, it created 3 mist rings. The enemy was left sprawled out, unconscious. Oh! The black gold seal soldier who was watching from afar covered his face with his hand. He could not bear to look as though he was feeling this move. Zhuo gaped. He suddenly turned around and said, "Who taught him this?" The black gold seal soldier immediately became smug. He patted his chest and said proudly, "Who else? Other than the great black gold, who could have thought of such a clever killing move? I said to that idiot a long time ago, no one can match this move." The black gold seal soldier laughed proudly. Zhuo looked at the guy and then pointed at the unconscious person on the ground. "The spoils on that guy belong to you." The laughter choked off. The black gold seal soldier's expression froze on his face. 10th grade and Sunshine pretended to not see it. They turned around to pick up the spoils from the female MO. What occurred at the Sea of 10,000 boiling pools caused Zhuo's trip into the sea to come to an abrupt stop. Zhuo handed the unconscious person to the tomb guards for them to interrogate him about his origins. Zhuo continued to repair his body. Without the constant damage done by the burning sun flows, the repairing effect of the nether ghostine heavy would increased. Without realizing it, Zhuo's body had been repaired to the 18th level. The guard, Little Hua, came to visit. This was the first time that Little Hua had come since the attack in the Sea of 10,000 boiling pools. "Grand Master." Little Hua's expression was ashamed. "Last time, this lowly one did not manage to protect you, it really was." Zhuo smiled. "If I didn't have some treasures up my sleeve, I would have been the same in an ambush like this. Have you discovered the origins of these people?" The captive had been given to the tomb ghost lord and Zhuo did not pay any more attention to this matter. The nether realm was just a temporary residence for him. Once he repaired his body, he would leave. He had no interest in the factions and battles here. When the matter was mentioned, Little Hua's expression immediately darkened. It is Jia Man's people. Jia Man? Yes, one of the 4 nether lords. Little Hua realized and said embarrassedly, I almost forgot. The Ghost Lord invites Grandmaster for a visit. Mo nodded. Then let's go. Riding the bone carriage, they quickly reached the Een Tomb Ghost Lord's residence. When Mo saw the Een Tomb Ghost Lord, he was shocked. Ghost Lord is wounded. The Een Tomb Ghost Lord was expressionless, but his tone was slightly surprised. Grandmaster has keen eyes. I fought a few rounds with Jia Man. He did not leave well either. It is my shame for the inconsiderate care we took of you during the ambush in the sea of 10,000 boiling pools. As he spoke, he opened a jade box. There was a head with angry eyes. This is one of Jia Man's right hand. He is called Yuan Hong. He planned the ambush and abduction. I have taken his head to apologize to Grandmaster, the Een Tomb Ghost Lord said gravely. When he heard that Mo had been ambushed, he had been extremely angry. He led the Een Tomb's 5 Ghost Lords to sneak into Jia Man's lands to take Yuan Hong's head. However, they also paid a heavy price. Including the Een Tomb Ghost Lord, 3 of them were wounded. There is no need to be so. Mo increasingly felt that the Een Tomb Ghost Lord was a good person. He was quick to repay favors and slights, had honor, and was decisive in his actions. The Een Tomb Ghost Lord said in a grave voice, Jia Man is a person of great cunning and endurance. He is an insurgent. King is not in a good state recently. Jia Man is restless. This conflict between Een Tomb guards and Eastern Nether Mansion could not be avoided. Fighting is about to start. Mo listened silently. The Eastern Nether Mansion has desired the 10,000 tombs of the Netherworld for a long time. However, the king was worried and had me guard this place. Mo asked curiously. Why does he want the 10,000 tombs of the underworld? This is the homeland of the king, the Een Tomb Ghost Lord explained. King is of mysterious origins and has always searched for his homeland. Then he found the 10,000 tombs of the underworld. The rumors say that the 10,000 tombs of the underworld hides the king's cultivation inheritance. Mo's interest in this nether king immediately grew. The 10,000 tombs of the underworld was very mysterious. No matter if it was the Billion Bone Peak, or the sea of 10,000 boiling pools, they were all mysteries. Jia Man is so daring. Mo couldn't resist asking. The Nether King was not in a good state recently, but the 10,000 tombs of the underworld was the homeland of the Nether King. It was still a taboo to attack the Nether King's homeland. Jia Man is very smart. He will not take it all for himself, the Ghost Lord shook his head. An Mo is loyal to King, but a problem occurred during cultivation. The West Jail Mansion cannot protect itself. Yuzha of South Abyss Mansion sways whatever direction the wind blows. Hai Exa and Bing of Northern Plains Ice Mansion has always been at odds with the Een Tomb guards. Even if she wanted to clean up the situation, she will only act after we fight with Jia Man. Which of you is stronger? Mo asked directly. Jia Man is stronger, the Ghost Lord said honestly. Jia Man's Eastern Nether Mansion is the strongest of the 4 Nether Lords. The Een Tomb guards are weaker than the 4 mansions, and we are much weaker than Eastern Nether Mansion. However, Jia Man did not think that I would take precautions against him more than a decade ago. Is there anything I can help with? Mo did not want to interfere in the inner conflict of the Nether Realm. However, the Nether Ghosteen heavy wood he needed was still reliant on the Een Tomb Ghost Lord. He did not want the Een Tomb guards to be defeated. Many thanks, Grandmaster. If possible, I want to ask Grandmaster to first forge a batch of suitable Shin equipment. The matter of the Shin device can be put to the side for now. The Ghost Lord did not mask his intentions regarding this meeting and immediately made his request. All right. Mo briskly agreed. Leaving the Ghost Lord's residence, Mo said to Little Hua, to the fire cemetery. Ever since Suemo taught the forgers to cultivate ghost fire, the activity in the fire cemetery cooled down. There were not many people to be seen and only those pillars of fire were left. Since Suemo had promised the Een Tomb Ghost Lord to forge a batch of Shin equipment, he decided to complete it as soon as possible. All kinds of materials flowed towards the fire cemetery. The news that Grandmaster was about forge quickly spread in the 10,000 tombs of the underworld. Those forgers that were searching for ghost fire or refining ghost fire stopped what they were doing and hurried over. The surrounding mountains were filled with people. They looked curiously at the fire cemetery at the bottom of the valley. It was a rare opportunity to see a Grandmaster forge. Bone carriage after bone carriage filled with materials transported all kinds of materials in a stream. It had not stopped for days. Ming Hong, how many carriages? Someone asked. 112. Ming Hing immediately gave an accurate number. What does Grandmaster want to do with so much materials? How could he use up so much materials? Shut up. Just keep watching. The discussion and speculation did not stop in the crowd. No one understood. What did Grandmaster want to do? Ming Hong did not participate in the discussion. His gaze was locked onto the Grandmaster. Grandmaster's figure continued to pass through the pillars of fire. The materials were piled up like a mountain nearby. When Zuemo examined the cemetery, he couldn't help but sigh. It really was a good place to forge. The earth fire here was a good grade and the earth fire was almost unimaginably abundant. There was an ocean of earth fire under the fire cemetery. The only detrimental aspect was that there were too many impurities in it. However, this was nothing for Zuemo. In his eyes, the fire cemetery was a great cauldron that the heavens had created. The abundant earth fire, the numerous fire openings, this could become a great forging place. However, before that, he needed to set up. Zuemo had a plan. He did not hesitate. With a wave of his hand, many materials floated out of the materials pile. The materials that flew out formed a line in the air and entered the flame in Zuemo's hand like birds returning to the next. It almost didn't take any effort for the Sun Shin fire to forge these materials. The forging was completed in a blink. The materials passed rapidly through the Sun Shin fire. When they did, their appearances changed completely. They were like phoenixes that went through their rebirth. They went from dull to glowing, and flashed with eye-catching light. They drew out bright and grand streaks of light in the air and landed in every corner of the fire cemetery. The flame in Zuemo's hand seemed able to turn something rotten into a wonder. The rays rained out from his hand. Trees of fire with silvery flowers stole the gazes. The people on the mountains in the surrounded were speechless in shock. Chapter 870, Fire Cemetery. As the beautiful streaks of light entered every corner, the fire cemetery started to change. Quick, look at that fire pillar, someone shouted. Everyone reacted and they moved their gaze to the fire pillars of the fire cemetery. One of the bright red fire pillars that erupted from the vent was rapidly becoming transparent and deep blue. The surging fire pillar was like a tamed beast. It was much calmer, the pillar was thinner than before, but the flames were clearly more concentrated. Even from a long ways off, people could clearly feel that the temperature of the deep blue fire pillar had increased greatly. Soon, another pillar of fire turned deep blue. One after another, the fire pillars in fire cemetery became deep blue and clear. The temperature of the air increased greatly and those that were weaker started to feel sweat flowing down their backs. However, no one left. They did not dare to move their eyes away. At this time, almost everyone knew Zuemo's intentions. Grandmaster was purifying the fire pillars of fire cemetery. Materials flowed like water through the flames in Grandmaster's hand and became bright rays of various colors lit up on Grandmaster's right hand, as the hand made all kinds of profound movements. His movements flowed easily, were pleasing to see, and so beautiful that people were unconsciously entranced. The entire process continued for about 2 hours. The fire cemetery was now completely transformed. Pillars of blue flame burned silently. The hissing of the flames, the snap and pop, the roar of the lava, all of those sounds disappeared completely. The ground of the fire cemetery was covered in a spiderweb of beautiful glowing lines. The pillars of fire were erupting from the holes in the web. Zuo looked with satisfaction at the modified fire cemetery. Fire cemetery was the best fire forging venue he had ever seen. This place was filled with abundant and high-level earth fire. It was a pity that this was the nether realm. If this was Mo Cloud Sea, Gold Crow Camp would have started to use it a long time ago. It was really a waste to have this be used by these unskilled people to forge. A large fire forging venue like the fire cemetery was actually best suited for large-scale forging. It only needed one expert to be in charge and numerous capable assistants. The efficiency would be high. Zuo suddenly shook his head and laughed. Why was he worrying for other people? He turned back to look at the fire cemetery. He had reforged all of fire cemetery. The fire cemetery was good, but there were shortcomings. The earth fire here was of high grade but had too many impurities. If he wanted to use it, he first had to purify the earth fire. Zuo was experienced in this. He had designed a fire element seal formation so that before the earth fire erupted out of the ground, the impurities would be filtered out. He based this seal formation on Ascension glyphs and the effects were outstanding. There were 300 fire pillars in fire cemetery. 300 deep blue pillars of fire stood in rows. While they were not as astoundingly loud as before, they caused people to feel an indescribable power. The forgers that were watching from the mountains were overcome with excitement. Where had they ever seen such incomprehensible forging before? Low-level forging like this was almost effortless for Zuo. While he had forged for 2 hours, he was not tired at all. He did not pause. He waved his hand, and the mountain of materials behind him floated into the air as though they were held by an invisible hand. Zuo shouted, "Go!" Whoosh! The materials that had floated up turned into 300 slender flows, each of which entered a pillar of fire. Zuo did not stop or hesitate. He waved his hand again. Another pile of materials flew into the air, split into 300 portions and then entered the 300 pillars of fire. When the materials entered the pillar of fire, they would quickly melt and turn into liquid. Mountain after mountain of materials disappeared into the pillars of fire at astounding speeds. In a flash, half of the materials around Zuo had disappeared. The pillars of fire were clear and blue. People could clearly see the liquid floating inside the pillars. Inside every pillar of fire was a ball of liquid that was about the size of a basket. The ones that floated in 300 pillars were exactly the same. If people had been entranced before, now they had stopped breathing. Everyone had expressions of disbelief on their faces. Did Grandmaster want to forge 300 articles at once? While they still didn't know what Grandmaster wanted to forge, but the balls of liquid in each pillar were the same. It was clear that Grandmaster wanted to forge en masse. This was not possible. Many people unconsciously stopped breathing. They had never heard of someone that could forge 300 of the exact same thing in one go. Not even the most powerful forging masters could do it. They looked at the white-haired figure beside the fire cemetery. What was Grandmaster's true identity? Zuo's attention was focused. While these pillars of fire had been purified, they were not his Ascension fire and was not as easy to control. He did not need great effort to use Ascension fire. He could only use these pillars of fire as cauldrons. Zuo had only used cauldrons a long time ago back on Wukong Mountain when he used them to forge Dan. But for Zuo at present, the one method was applicable to all. This was not the problem. However, he currently had no Shen power in his body and was forced to use other methods. He sat down, coiled his legs and closed his eyes to rest. Not long after, a figure flew from afar and landed next to Zuo. It was Guard Hua. Little Hua said respectfully, "Grandmaster, I have completed it." He held a jade bottle in his hand. Zuo opened his eyes and took the jade bottle. He said with a smile, "Thank you, Guard Hua. This is my duty. Grandmaster is too polite." Little Gardhua said respectfully. Mo did not waste words. He held the jade bottle and walked to the side of Fire Cemetery. With a shout, a wave of gray energy flew out of the jade bottle. Death energy. It really is death energy. There were people with keen eyes on the mountains. They immediately recognized this. People in the sea of 10,000 boiling pools were familiar with the gray death energy. Of course they recognized it. However, they were slightly puzzled. Did Grandmaster want to use death energy? People had tried to forge using death energy in the past, but they found that when death energy was added into earth fire, if there was too little of it, it would quickly disappear, and if there was too much, it would cause an explosion. Mo's expression was grave as he beckoned with his right hand. What flew out this time was a batch of bones. Ming Hong recognized them. These ashen white bones were shrieking bones. The shrieking bones were an unique product of the 10,000 tombs of the underworld. The bones were very unique. If one stepped on them, they would give off dissonant shrieks. The reason that the shrieking bones made sounds was because they held a remnant of a fiend's soul. Over time, it would form something like a bone spirit. However, the bone spirit that was produced was so weak there almost wasn't any use to them. Due to this, the bones were not worth any money. If one wanted to train it to become a little ghost, the cost would be more than just buying a little ghost. If this was any other place, people might still buy shrieking bones. But in the 10,000 tombs of the underworld, bones were the most worthless thing. Shrieking bones were also the same. Darren was using shrieking bones. Everyone was astounded and their eyes went wide. Did the shrieking bones contain some secret? No one knew that on the mountain peak, there were also a few pairs of eyes watching all of this. Shrieking bones? This person's method is very strange. Si-Du, who was completely green all over, had an expression of puzzlement. Shrieking bones were so common. They could be seen all over the 10,000 tombs of the underworld. Si-Du's green complexion was slightly fainter. He was one of the 3 that had been wounded among the 6 that had went to Eastern Nether Mansion. Interesting. Gu Wu Shuang's eyes flashed with ghost fire. He was extremely curious. Death poison, Sand Woman's nether sand is in his possession, Buru Mian rumbled, but be prepared to trade for it with your best treasures. Boss said that no one can touch Grandmaster. Buru Mian and Si-Du were good friends, so he called the other death poison. Sand Woman's nether sand. Si-Du's eyes lit up. The sand would be of great help to his recovery. If he could get the nether sand, his wounds wouldn't just heal, he might grow even stronger. Suddenly, Mo Ru said, "How did he kill Sand Woman?" Everyone's attention was attracted by this question. Everyone had been astounded by that battle. If it was an ambush from Sand Woman and Traveler, any one of them would not have been able to survive it. It was not the first time they fought Eastern Nether Mansion. Sand Woman and Traveler were equal in strength to them. But the ambush by the 2 didn't just fail, one of them died in the battle while one was captured alive. They were in disbelief over the result. In other words, if 2 of them went to sneak attack Grandmaster, it was likely the same outcome. Everyone's gaze gathered on Buru Mian. He had been the closest to the ambush. Buru Mian's muffled voice came through the cloth. "Don't ask me, I don't know. I was fighting with Leng Wei at the time. However, I did not feel any vibrations from their fight. Grandmaster might have used an underhanded move." The group could accept this explanation. They did not have any doubts that Grandmaster was a great craftsman. It would be strange if a forging Grandmaster did not have some treasures up his sleeve. If you have energy, focus on recover. We cut off Yuan Hong's head, Sand Woman and Traveler are both dead, Leng Wei was heavily injured, Eastern Nether Mansion will not accept this. They will definitely gather their forces quickly and come here, He Wu said coldly. Leng Wei's wounds are not light. He dared to fight against me in the sea of 10,000 boiling pools, he is really tired of living. Buru Mian's eyes flashed with vicious light. Do you think that if we asked Grandmaster to forge Shin equipment for us, he would agree? Si-Du suddenly said. His eyes were murderous. Who among us doesn't have some treasures? If we do not use them now, should we keep them to benefit Eastern Nether Mansion after they kill us? This was what everyone was thinking about. This battle this time would only end with the fall of one side. There was no going back. They did not say it, but they all knew it. Eastern Nether Mansion was stronger than the Een Tomb Guards. Their chances of victory were not high. Let's do this. Bu Rumian said briskly. All right. He Wu said. Yes. Gu Wuxuang agreed. Mo Ru suddenly said, look. Chapter 871, 300 pieces of Shin equipment. When the shrieking bones were enveloped by the death energies, terrifying shrieks sounded. There seemed to be countless ghouls moving inside. If this scene appeared anywhere else, it would frighten the spectators, but for the Een Tomb Guards, they were immune to things like ghosts. They widened their eyes and didn't dare to divide their attention. They wanted to see what Grandmaster could do with the shrieking bones. The thick death energy roiled. Zhua Mo's jade bottle seemed to be bottomless. The death energy showed no signs of slowing. The gray death energy was like a thick gray mist that wrapped around the shrieking bone and twisted in the air. The death energy continued to permeate the shrieking bones. The shrieking bones trembled slightly. The shrieks became even higher pitched and dissonant to hear. Mo Ru and the others were astonished. They could clearly feel the evil power contained in the shrieks. Compared to before, the shrieking bones were at least 3 grades higher. Those in the surroundings that were weaker would easily become irritated by the sound. They would feel nausea, and might even feel as though they would faint. Everyone was surprised that the death energy's effect on the shrieking bones was so evident, especially Gu Wuxuang. The balls of flame flickered wildly in his eye sockets. He was clearly very interested. Such a common material like the shrieking bones had such potential. If they could use it, it would be a great matter to the Een Tomb Guards. Zhuo did not know what other people were thinking. His expression was focused. Right now, he had no Shin power in his body. The only things he could rely on were his god-level cultivation and his practiced forging skill. Without Shin power, he could not use many of the normal methods. He could only think of other ways. Fortunately, he had learned many things. He knew some of the Xiuzhe forging, the Mo weapons of the Mo, and even the creation of the Yao cores. He even knew some things about the ancient sacrificial altar arts of the ancients which had disappeared long ago. At this time, countless patterns quickly appeared under the death energy ball and formed a round formation. No one observing could understand this seal formation. Even in the Xiuzhe world, not many people would understand it. The round formation was actually a sacrificial altar. When the round formation lit up, the death energy also lit up. The death energy suddenly turned black and the wails increased in volume. Evil sound vibrations that could not be seen spread outwards. The 300 pieces of shrieking bones had changed appearance dramatically. There were eerie gray markings on the surface of the bones. The markings on each shrieking bone were different. The evil sound vibrations had been released by these gray marks. 300 evil sound vibrations compounded together, the resulting power was terrifying. Careful! Evil sound ghost thought, someone shouted in alarm. The expressions on every person's face changed as they retreated. The entire fire cemetery was influenced by the evil sound ghost thought. Those that were slower to react felt as though someone had hit their heads with a hammer. Their minds were stunned, and were completely blank. Their expressions were dazed as they stood motionlessly where they were. Zhuo had not expected the sound vibrations would be so strong. The area that they covered surpassed his expectations. But then he became more energized. He had just thought of this method to forge. He hadn't expected the effects to be better than he had imagined. The evil sound ghost thoughts would cause people's thoughts to be disrupted, and they would sink into a daze. However, they did not have any offensive power. The Mo that were affected by the evil sound ghost thoughts would not be in direct danger, but in battle, this would be a great supporting move. Such a pure evil sound ghost thought. Mo Russ' voice came from behind the veil as she couldn't resist but give praise. The shrieks before had contained evil power, but the power was tens of times greater now that it became evil soul ghost thoughts. When the other people heard this, they became alert and their anticipation grew. Mo Ru was the one most skilled in evil sounds among them. Any evil sound ghost thought that she praised was really something. The purer the evil sound ghost thought, the better its effect. Zhua Mo was god level and immune to the evil sound ghost thought. His mind was unmoved by the waves of evil sound ghost thought. The evil sound ghost thought was useful, but it was not much in Zhua Mo's eyes. He paid attention to the 300 shrieking bones wrapped in death energy. The death energy became blacker and was absorbed by the shrieking bones. When the death energy was completely absorbed, there were only 300 shrieking bones left floating in the air. The shrieking bones had become inky black with a faint gray mark on the surface. The marks on each bone was different. Zhua Mo was filled with joy. His thinking had been correct. Forge vitality from death energy. This was the most important part of his forging today. These 5 words were his greatest gain. Both the nether ghostine heavy wood and the shinwood coffin absorbing death energy had provided him great inspiration. Life and death were opposites, but they could turn into each other like the yin and yang of the world. In the past, he had enough power, he did not need to extract power from life and death. But right now, facing the problem of the 5 sealed coffins, he had spent a decade pondering life and death. The nether ghostine heavy wood and the shinwood coffins nourished by death energy had given him great inspiration. In ordinary situations, if one wanted to nourish vitality, they only needed to strengthen the vitality itself. But when vitality was weak and about to die, one could not absorb vitality. At that time, one could seek life from death. When the death energy reached a concentrated level, vitality could be forged out of it. This was forging vitality from death energy. The marks on these 300 shrieking bones were the bits of vitality that Zhua Mo had forged out of death energy. The bone spirits inside the shrieking bones absorbed the bits of pure vitality and immediately changed. Success. After searching for so many years, he finally found the way to awaken eldest Shixiang, Ague, and the others. Zhua Mo forced down his joy. He took a deep breath. There was still a step that needed to be completed. He pointed into thin air. The 300 shrieking bones exploded and streamed into liquid in the pillars of fire. When the shrieking bones entered the liquid, the pillars of fire and the liquid trembled violently. The surfaces of the balls undulated vigorously, there seemed to be countless worms crawling inside them. The evil sound ghost thoughts suddenly became excited and shot into the surroundings. Clear ripples even appeared in the air. The evil sound ghost thought reached an extremely strong level. Pain appeared on the face of little guard Hua beside Zhua Mo. He was the closest, and inside the range covered by the evil sound ghost thought. However, he was not willing to retreat and could only endure it. Nearby, Zhua Mo was not affected by the evil sound ghost thought at all. His body was upright. Only his snowy white hair flew in the wind. The liquid within the pillars constantly moved and changed shape. "Hm. It's taking shape," Si Du exclaimed. "Seems so." Bu Ru Mian's eyes were bright. "It appears as though it's becoming armor." The changing liquid inside the pillars of fire seemed to be pinched into shape by an invisible hand. The beginnings of armor could be seen from their shape. While it was really rough, they were in the shape of shin equipment. This invisible hand was skillful, and like an expert worksman it carved out the outline, the edges, hollowed places, and carved patterns. The beginnings of the shin equipment inside the pillars of fire grew at a visible rate. From top to bottom, they completely transformed. The tide of evil sound ghost thoughts gradually calmed. Those that were weaker finally felt that the world in front of them recover its original appearance. 300 articles of shin equipment floated in the blue pillars of fire. The people who had just refocused were stunned when they saw this scene. And the Yin Tomb 5 ghosts who had seen how these 300 pieces of shin equipment had formed from beginning to end were even more shocked. They didn't know what words to use to describe what they had seen, and to describe the unparalleled shock that they felt right now. 300 articles of Shin equipment had grown on their own in front of them. Starting from when the shrieking bones entered the pillars of fire, Mo did not move. He was like a cold observer that planted the seeds and waited for them to grow. The 300 articles of Shin equipment were all different. Some were simple and crude, others refined and grand, some were covered in spikes, some were hollow and carved, some were as soft as leather, others as hard as steel. Incomprehensible, uncanny technique. The Tomb 5 ghosts that were used to seeing amazing things sank into silence as they looked dazedly at the 300 Shin equipment. Finally succeeded. Mo showed a small smile. Forging at such a large scale had never occurred before. However, he was not excited that he had created a completely new method of forging, but that his hypothesis had been proven. If he continued, it would not be long before he would wake up eldest Shixiang, Ague, and the others. Little Guardhua, Mo turned and said to Little Guardhua. Little Guardhua was looking dazedly at the pillar of fire with a gaping mouth. He did not seem to hear Mo's voice. Mo had to increase his volume. Little Guardhua shook and woke up. He stammered, this, 2. He stammered for a while but could not find the words to describe it. His face was flushed bright red. Mo saw this and said with a smile, the Shin equipment are about done, but there is still one last step. Hearing that there was still one step left, Little Guardhua immediately calmed down. Grandmaster, please speak. They need to be placed into the sea of 10,000 boiling pools to be nourished for 5 days, Mo said. I will leave this matter to Little Guardhua. Is it acceptable? Little Guardhua hurriedly said, yes. Is there anything to pay attention to? Mo said, the greater the death energy the better. There is nothing else to pay attention to. In the 5 days, the guards need to be careful that the evil sound ghost thought does not permeate and harm them. Yes. Little Guardhua hurriedly said. Mo nodded and said, I will not worry if Little Guardhua is in charge. Right, these 300 pieces of Shin equipment are all ghosts with wills. They need to choose their owners. If the owners are not acceptable to them, their power would greatly decrease. Little Guardhua's eyes were bright when he listened to this. Something that was able to choose a master. This was a trait that only high-grade treasures would have. Grandmaster, do not worry. I will not waste Grandmaster's efforts. Little Guardhua said. At this time, Gu Wu Shuang and the others flew off the peak and landed next to Mo. Chapter 872, The King's Horn. Grandmaster is unparalleled in skill, and amazes us all. Gu Wu Shuang flattered. Mo smiled. Just some simple moves, nothing to speak of. He was not being modest. From beginning to end, Mo only used some ordinary techniques. Other than the difficulty in controlling so many pillars of fire at once, there were many forgers that could do this. Grandmaster is too humble. Mo Ru spoke up. Forging 300 pieces of Shin equipment at once is unheard of. Even if we have seen it with our own eyes, we still find it inconceivable when we think of it. Mo realized now that these people were here for a reason. It was not fitting of their status to stand here and flatter him without leaving. He said directly, do you have a matter to discuss? The group exchanged a look. Si Du went forward. Would Grandmaster trade for the nether sand you have? Nether sand? A handful of black sand floated in Mo's hand. This thing? Si Du's eyes lit up as he nodded repeatedly. Yes, exactly. Mo nodded. This can be traded. However, what does Mr. Si Du plan on trading for this? Originally, Mo had planned to get the Black Gold Seal Soldier to eat this, but the Black Gold Seal Soldier was disgusted by it on that day. In a rare occurrence, his appetite was gone. The person that the ghost mist child had farted unconscious was the spoils. When Black Gold thought of this, he didn't have any appetite at all. He felt great regret. Why had he thought of this move for the ghost mist child? He had sinned. Since black gold didn't eat it, Zuemo had played with the nether sand for a while and then put it away. This thing was not of any use to him. Hearing that Si-du wanted to trade for this, he took it out. Si-du scratched his head and took out a pile of things. My assets are here. If Grandmaster has something you like, please take it. Zuemo was not courteous. He swept a look and picked out a 5-colored stone. This marked poison stone. Si-du agreed. He liked to collect poisonous things. This marked poison stone was one of his collection. However, it was extremely difficult to extract poison from the marked poison stone. Even with his power, he could only leave it as a paperweight. It was not as practical as the nether sand. Zuemo then said, the marked poison stone is rare. I will not let you have a loss. You can pick one of these things. Zuemo took out some of the things he forged out of his ring. Si-du was overjoyed. He picked out a round disc of good quality called the mist disc. Zuemo had copied the mist eye tablet when he forged the mist disc. Because this was something he used to practice, the materials used in it were ordinary. However, Zuemo's present skill was unordinary. While the materials were ordinary, the quality was still outstanding, and Si-du picked it at a glance. With a good beginning to the trades, everyone else became confident. Buru Mian rumbled. Could Grandmaster forge a piece of shin equipment for me? Then he took out all of his wealth, and displayed all of them as though he wanted Zuemo to pick as he wished. Zuemo suddenly understood. He did not refuse and he looked in interest at Buru Mian's collection. Experts like the Tomb 5 ghosts were in the top tier of experts of Nether Realm. In Nether Realm, the Nether King was undoubtedly the strongest, followed by the 4 Nether Lords and the Tomb Ghost Lord. These 5 were of the same level. Then it was the Tomb 5 Ghost and the generals of the 4 mansions. They were at approximately the same skill level. So the collections of people like the Tomb 5 Ghosts were astounding since they were at a relatively high position on the food chain of Nether Realm. Unlike Si-du who preferred to collect poisonous things, Buru Mian's collection was comprised of nether items. Strange corpse cloth, ghost fires that flickered, a complete zombie. There were also various kinds of zombies, black-furred, green-furred, red-furred and so on. There were dozens of those and Zuemo gaped at them. The others exchanged a look and then took out their collections. Gu Wushuang's collection could be called the complete collection of all kinds of skeletons and bones. 10,000 fiend bones, snowflower bone, black marrow skeleton, jade skeleton. Hei Wu's collection was one that could frighten people to faint. A dragon heart that was still bleeding and beating. A tendon that twisted and squirmed like a snake. Strange balls of blood that gave off a strong metallic tang. Zuemo almost thought that this person was a butcher. In comparison, Mo Russ' collection was much more normal. A long horn that would produce low notes on its own, a spiraling stone, tree bark with burnt marks and could float. Si-du to a look. Ooh, everyone was serious. Then he hurriedly took out a few more things with pain on his face and put them in front of him. His actions immediately attracted the disdainful gazes of the others. Everyone is very wealthy. Zuemo chuckled. The 5 smiled as well, but they were clearly feeling pained. It had taken them great effort for them to collect these treasures. However, when they thought of the hard battles that were about to occur, the pain faded. What was more important than their lives? If they weren't alive, these things would naturally belong to other people. Grandmaster, please pick as you wish. The 5 said in unison. Zuemo laughed. However, he had to admit that this broadened his vision. The nether items that these people collected were the best of the nether items. The Tomb Ghost Lord was probably the only one that would have a better collection. Naturally, Zuemo would not be polite. His eyes were experienced. He did not know the names of some of these materials, but when it entered his hand, he would know their attributes and uses. The merging of his god-level cultivation and his experience of the top materials in the endless void caused him to be unrivaled in this area. Zuo chose that jade skeleton from Gu Wushuang's materials. When Zuo picked the jade skeleton, he heard the sound of Gu Wushuang grinding his teeth in pain. It took many years for a skeleton to turn into jade, and the special environment that could form this was rare. This jade skeleton was the best of all the skeletons he collected. Zuo planned to give this jade skeleton to Lan after he returned to Mo Cloud Sea. That guy's body was incomplete and this jade skeleton was suitable to replace the lost bones. Zuo unhesitatingly chose the dragon heart from Hei's collection. Truthfully, he had picked out the dragon heart at first glance. The dragon heart was extremely strong in vitality, and this dragon heart was still beating. When Zuo touched it, he immediately felt a great abundance of vitality. Eldest Shixiang. If he put this dragon heart into Eldest Shixiang's body, how powerful would Eldest Shixiang's body become? The dragon heart's ability to produce blood was unrivaled in the world and it could definitely pair with the god-killing blood sword. Abundant vitality, unrivaled and powerful resolve, an imperishable fighting will, a sword essence that was at the peak. A powerful warrior that would astound the world. Zuo was excited just thinking about it. Eldest Shixiang, Lin Qian will be for you. Zuo turned to Buru Mian's collection. His gaze landed on a seemingly ordinary wisp of ghost fire. This ghost fire looked as though there was nothing special about it, but he said without hesitation, I want this ghost fire. Here. Buru Mian did not hesitate to hand it over. Then he asked curiously, could Grandmaster explain for me what this is? I accidentally obtained this ghost fire and felt that there was something strange. But upon closer examination, I cannot find anything special. Grandmaster must have identified what was special to have picked it. Could you speak of it? The others also showed curious expressions. They had all looked at Buru Mian's ghost fire. They felt the same as Buru Mian. This ghost fire wasn't quite right. But they could not pinpoint what wasn't right. The ghost fire held in his hand, Zuo explained. There is a soul hiding in this ghost fire. However, it is extremely skilled in hiding, and so you were not able to find it. As he spoke, the blurry figure of a female appeared in the ghost fire. This female bowed elegantly to Zuo. Zuo had pointed her out and there was no use in hiding, so she could only submit to Zuo. The five realized and sked as they marveled. Zuo picked the horn that was making sound on its own from Mo Ru's collection. Mo Ru handed over the long horn and then asked, this one has obtained this item for a long time and does not know its origins. Could Grandmaster tell me? Zuo took the long horn and nodded. This item has a great history. Everyone perked up their ears. Even Grandmaster said that this item had a great history. It immediately stirred their curiosity. The era of the totems ended and it gradually shifted into the era of the Yao, Mo, and Xiao. The first king in history for the Mo appeared. Everyone should know this. Is Grandmaster talking about the Mo king of the 100 wasteland oxen? Gu Wushuang asked. Yes. Zuo nodded. King is a term unique to the Mo. The Yao and the Xiuzha do not have kings. As the era of Shen power declined, the tribes gradually divided into three groups. One of the three was the ancestors of the Mo. The term king came from them. However, the king of that era, strictly speaking, is not the same as the present. Everyone listened carefully. They had a feeling that what Grandmaster was going to say to them was most likely an astounding matter. This Mo king's cultivation had reached a peak, and he was just a thread away from god level. This was astounding for the time. Zuo's voice was low. He unconsciously thought of Pu Yao and Wei. It had been those two who had narrated these forgotten and ancient histories to him. Reminiscing on memories was like a black cloud. Some people were covered by darkness, some could see sunlight through the cracks. Zuo raised his head, his expression having recovered. In truth, he did become god level later on, even if it was only for a short while. For those that have the blood of Mo, when they enter god level, the power in their bloodline is completely released. They could cause instinctive fear in other Mo. This first Mo king used his horn to forge a horn to lead the Mo. That is the king's horn. The five listened with wide eyes and open mouths. Of course they had heard of the king's horn. This legendary treasure that had briefly appeared gloriously in history. It was the symbol of might and power. The rumor was that one who obtained the king's horn would unite the Mo. However, just like the other treasures of legend, it had disappeared. Is this the king's horn? Mo Ru almost shouted. No. Zhuo Mo shook his head. For some unknown reason, the five sighed in relief. The pressure on them decreased. If it really was the king's horn, it would be too shocking. Good. So scary. I had thought that this was the king's horn. Motherfucker, if a treasure is too good, one cannot endure the consequences. Si-Du still felt lingering fear. Everyone else nodded. Zhuo Mo glanced at them and said with a calm expression, "This is the other horn of the first Mo king." Chapter 873, Forming Beads in the Death Eye. The Een Tomb. Five ghosts were dumbstruck. While it was not the king's horn, it was still stunning. The first king of the Mo. Just this name was enough to cause them to wet themselves. Is it really true? Si-Du stammered out. The other four locked closely at Zhuo Mo as though there was a flower growing off his face. Of course it's true. Zhuo Mo smiled. He looked at Mo Ru and held the horn in front of her. If you regret it, I will pick something else. Mo Ru furiously waved her hand. This thing is a hot potato, only Grandmaster can possess it. The other four nodded. Mo Ru's words were not flattery. The Een Tomb guards were about to start fighting with Eastern Nether Mansion. No matter which side won, none of them would dare to offend Grandmaster. In Nether Realm, where forgers were rare and valuable, one's head would definitely be wrong if they went to offend a Grandmaster that could forge Shin devices. In their view, the four Nether Lords would not do something so stupid. If Grandmaster wanted the horn, the four Nether Lords would not hesitate even if it was the true king's horn, and not just the long horn of the first king. And this long horn had an astounding history, but it seemed as though only Grandmaster would have the ability to forge it into a true king's horn. In these days, people believed in the power of battalions and experts. The Een Tomb. Five ghost would not believe that one horn would be enough to conquer the world. The Nether King didn't have the horn and he still united the Nether Realm. In other words, it still depended on who had the stronger fist. But Mo Ru and the others did not want to be involved with something as troublesome as this. While they listened with great attention, they had no intentions of taking it for themselves. If this was in the past, they might get a reward if they gave it as tribute to Nether King. But the king had not been seen for a long time. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. Having it in their possessing would bring a calamity. Zhuo Mo put away the long horn. He had great interest in it. The king's horn of legend seemed wondrous. This long horn most likely was extraordinary. He was god level and he lacked treasures he could use. While the talismans and Shin devices he forged before were not bad, they were still lacking for him at present. The Shin power of a god-level expert was not something that normal talismans could withstand. Lin Qian had the immemorial Shin sword, eldest Shixiang had the god-killing blood sword, but he did not have an appropriate Shin device. While Zhuo Mo had pit eldest Shixiang against Lin Qian in his mind, he did not have any assurances of when eldest Shixiang would wake up. If Lin Qian came out of seclusion and eldest Shixiang had not woken up, he was the only one that was a match. Zhuo Mo noted down this matter and his gaze swept across Si-Du's collection. Si-Du had pulled out a few more things after trading for the black sand. Things that this person kept to the end were good things. Zhuo Mo's gaze swept across a stone figure, and his head jumped. This stone was about the size of his fist, and there were countless black and white rings moved around the surface of the stone. These rings were of various sizes that gathered and spread apart. Yin Yang Ring Stone. Zhuo Mo unhesitatingly chose it. Si-Du felt slight pain but he sighed in relief. The Yin Yang Ring Stone was unique, but for Si-do that was primarily focused on poisons, it was not as useful as the other items. Everyone took what they needed. How long will Grandmaster take to forge Shin equipment? Si-do couldn't resist asking. Zuo thought. You five are all different, and the time will be different, but it will be no later than a month. Hearing Zuo give the deadline of a month, the five were satisfied. Eastern Nether Mansion would need time to gather the troops to attack the 10,000 tombs of the underworld. The Een tomb guards were on the defensive and these five did not need to worry about the initial clashes. Then we will bid you farewell. Si-do bid farewell to Zuo. He desperately needed to find a place to refine the nether sand he just obtained. Recovering from his wounds was the right choice at this time. The others also bid farewell. With a great battle coming, they needed to prepare many things. They each lead a battalion and they were busy. Zuo did not keep them. He also had many matters to attend to. He decided to forge pseudoshin devices for the five that were like the angel device raiment. With his present cultivation, forging pseudoshin devices were not difficult for him. His success rate at the weapon layering craftsmanship was astounding high. This was an advantage of his cultivation. The 300 items of Shin equipment could not satisfy the Ghost Lord's need. The problem now was that the material supply could not keep up with Zuo's forging speed. Almost all the warehouses were furiously transporting materials to the fire cemetery. Zuo planned to go to the Sea of 10,000 boiling pools. This time, he went alone without notifying anyone else. The Sea of 10,000 boiling pools were astounding. Zuo sneaked in and followed the direction from last time and walked towards the Death Eye. He noticed the 300 articles of Shin equipment had been placed into the Sea of 10,000 boiling pools to be nourished. Each piece of Shin equipment was absorbing death energy. Little whirlpools appeared over the Sea of 10,000 boiling pools. Each Shin equipment was being heavily guarded. Zuo carefully avoided the crowds and moved silently in the gray death energy. He soon was able to feel clearly that the death energy ahead was much thicker. He became alert. He was about to reach the Death Eye soon. After moving forward for about 15 minutes, Zuo felt the surrounding death energy was 8 times as dense as before. The death energy here was astounding thick. Zuo's heart trembled. If he was not god level, a normal expert would see all kinds of illusions in such thick death energy. The death energy would corrode their bodies. No wonder no one dared to come to the Death Eye. Even Zuo felt that the death energy was bone-chillingly cold. Zuo's speed slowed. After moving about 10 li further, the surrounding death energy was so thick it was tangible. With every step, he felt his vision seemed to shake. Countless evil ghosts and thoughts came at him, and illusions sprouted out. Zuo's expression became stern. He felt a great pressure. Whoosh! The sun-shin fire erupted out of his body. The evil ghosts immediately wailed when they touched the sun-shin fire. However, the sticky death energy seemed to be enraged by the sun-shin fire. They roared and roiled as waves of death energy moved towards Zuo's expression changed slightly. What kind of place was the Death Eye that it would have such a great concentration of death energy? He had never heard of a place with such a great concentration of death energy. Feeling the great power coming through the roiling death energy, Zuo shook his head. This place was not one he could come to at present. Unless his body completely recovered, and his Shin power was replenished, he would not be able to advance. It seemed that he could only come back after recovering. However, Zuo did not plan on leaving empty-handed. The thick sticky death energy here was a very good material by themselves. Zuo's hands grabbed at the air. Moments later, more than 50 beads formed from death energy appeared in his hands. The beads were gray. If one looked at the surface, they would be unconsciously sucked in. These death energy beads were of rare quality. After forming 50 death energy beads in succession, a hint of exhaustion flashed across Zuo's face. He was startled. The death energy here was so thick it was incomprehensible. Forming the 50 death energy beads took more effort than forging 300 articles of Shin equipment. It really was a strange place. Zuemo noted it down and put the death energy beads back in his ring. Then he went back along the way he came. This time, he still gained something. The 50 high-quality death energy beads were a considerable profit. Coming out the sea of 10,000 boiling pools, Zuemo returned to his residence. He sat for a whole day before recovering. Opening his eyes, he played with the death energy beads in his hands. He remembered the thought he had before and stood up to walk towards the back of the yard. Arriving in front of the 5 Shinwood coffins. As expected, the death energy in 5 death energy pools were halved. Zuemo thought and then took out a death energy bead to throw into one of the death energy pools. Boom! Surging death energy erupted. The Shinwood coffins suddenly lit up and started to absorb the death energy that had come out. Zuemo touched a Shinwood coffin and closed his eyes. The death energy was quickly permeating inside the coffin. Because the death energy was in high concentration, after it met the vitality of the Shinwood coffin, the base Shin power produced was 3 times stronger than before. Zuemo became excited. The conclusion he made after repeated consideration in these past days was that enough base Shin power would allow everyone to wake up. The base Shin power was unique. It could permeate all things and nourish people from the root. Everything was developing in a good direction. The future was filled with hope. Zuemo pulled out what he had gained today. The marked poison stone could only be given to the flower Yao after he returned to Mo Cloud Sea. The dragon heart was for eldest Shixiang. The jade skeleton for Lan. The ghost fire flickered in his hand. He was silent. When he obtained the ghost fire, he just had the beginnings of a thought, but the idea was still unclear. At this time, the female within the ghost fire suddenly appeared. She bowed when she saw Zuemo, Grandmaster. Zuemo stilled and then his thoughts were pulled back. What is it? Could Grandmaster bestow a death energy bead to this servant? The female shadow said honestly. If Grandmaster could bestow a death energy bead, this servant will be able to stabilize my body, and grow stronger. This servant is willing to be controlled by Grandmaster. Oh! A look flashed through Zuemo's eyes. After a moment of silence, he threw over a death energy bead. Here. The ghost fire female was overjoyed. The ghost fire flickered and wrapped around the death energy bead. The green ghost fire immediately had a faint tinge of gray. This servant needs multiple days to absorb the death energy. Grandmaster, please forgive me. The female figure wavered. Go, Zuemo said. The female figure bowed again and then disappeared. Zuemo thought to himself and then put the ghost fire back in the ring. He took out something else. The yin-yang ring stone. When Zuemo saw this item, the first person he thought of was Luoli. Yin and yang coexisted on this stone. If this stone was forged into a flying sword, the best form would be 2 swords chained together, and would be most suitable for Luoli and Woli. As Zuemo's understanding of life and death increased, he saw the connection between Woli and Luoli more clearly. If Woli did not die, then Luoli would not perish. The two were truly a pair that would live and die together. If this stone could be forged into a yin-yang paired chain swords, when the two woke up, their power would go up another level. Carefully putting the yin-yang ring stone away, Zuemo picked up his biggest gain of the day. The long horn, the horn of the first Mo king. Zuemo's hand caressed the patterns on the surface of the first Mo king's horn. He took a deep breath and his mind slowly sank into it. Chapter 874, changed just as Zuemo's mind came into contact with the horn of the first Mo king, the horn shook. Zuemo felt as though his ears were filled with the sound of the horn. This moaning horn seemed to have a magical power to reach people's minds. Zuemo's body uncontrollably trembled and the blood in his body suddenly turned hot. Zuemo jumped in fright. As expected from the horn of the first Mo king. With his god-level cultivation, he was still unable to withstand its power. At this time, the dark gold bead inside Zuemo's body suddenly lit up. Packed Sunshin glyphs appeared on the surface of the ball. It was that drop of golden bone marrow that Zhuemo had extracted from the dark gold femur of the ancient expert. Stimulated by the horn of the first king, it immediately activated. Its power that was mixed with burning sunshine flow quickly spread into Zhuemo's limbs. Zhuemo's mind quickly calmed down. However, the change just now still frightened Zhuemo. He found that he was acting far too rash. His body had not recovered. If he encountered danger, there really would not be anyone that could save him. He had been too rash. Zhuemo was still full of fear. At this time, the light released by the dark golden ball was stopping the horn. Zhuemo couldn't resist but examine it. Zhuemo had never seen these shin glyphs on the inside the horn. Zhuemo believed some of the rumors now. The sound of the horn caused the blood inside his body to suddenly heat up. He had the blood of Mo. Did the horn of the first Mo king truly possess the ability to use the power of Mo blood? Even though Zhuemo was used to seeing all kinds of treasures, he still found it incomprehensible. It was common knowledge that the bloodlines of the Mo contained great power. This was something that every Mo knew. But what really was the power that existed in their blood? No one understood. People only knew that the families that had ancient blood would have greater power in their blood than ordinary people. Also, the purer the blood, the greater the power of the bloodline. If there was an item that could directly control or affect the power that existed in the blood, it would be terrifying. Thinking back carefully, it seemed as though Pu Yao and Wei didn't know the location of the king's horn. Zhuemo suppressed his shock and broke his mind free of the king's horn. Even though he now had god-level cultivation, there were still so many things to explore in the world. Zhuemo opened his eyes. He lowered his head to examine the horn of the first Mo king, and he stilled. The horn which had been blackened and dim before was completely changed. There were fine dark red patterns covering the long horn. It was an ancient and mysterious totem character that was as red as blood. Zhuemo recognized this character. King. Zhuemo seemed to be struck by lightning as he looked dazedly at the completely transformed long horn in his hand. What was this? Zhuemo thought dazedly for a long time but still did not understand. The warm feeling that came from the long horn in his hand and the ancient and desolate presence caused it to appear mysterious and magnificent. Was this the true king's horn? When this thought appeared in Zhuemo's mind, he could not expel it. This grand and exquisite long horn, and that bloody red king mark inscribed matched the descriptions of the king's horn in the legends. There were faint vibrations that came from the dark red horn that seemed to be the sky that looked down on the world. King's horn. This was the real king's horn. Zhuemo was overjoyed. For little Mo Gu, as long as it was a treasure, he liked it. The more valuable and rare a treasure was, the more he liked it. He could not move his hand away from caressing the king's horn. This time, he had really profited. The king's horn. The legendary ultimate treasure that was said to dominate all Mo. What was the saying? Oh, the symbol of power and might, haha, it was great. Zhuemo was overcome with joy. The king's horn of the legends was able to lead the Mo and conquer the world. Zhuemo thought that it would not be as powerful as the legends said, but it probably was a treasure that could lead an army. After some thought, Zhuemo suppressed his restless heart. He decided to wait for his Shin power to recover before he tried. Alright, he would recover very soon, Zhuemo comforted himself. His days became peaceful again. On one hand, he used the nether ghostine heavy wood to repair his body. On the other, he forged Shin equipment and the pseudo-Shin devices for the 5 ghosts. Actually, with the wealth of the 5 ghosts, Shin devices could be forged. However, it was too much for Zhuemo to forge Shin devices, given his injuries and the short time frame. Pseudo-Shin devices were much easier. Zhuemo did not feel as though he had anything to do with the fighting between Eastern Nether Mansion and the Yin Tomb guards. Yet what he had not expected that he would be affected as well. There's no more nether ghostine heavy wood. Zhuemo frowned. The importance of the nether ghostine heavy wood did not have to be said. Without it, the time needed to repair his body would increase greatly. Little Gardhua had a distressed expression. Our business relationships with the outside have been cut off. Eastern Nether Mansion learned that Grandmaster needs Nether Ghostine heavy wood and they managed to buy it all first. We have used up all of our stores of Nether Ghostine heavy wood. This change immediately disrupted Zhuomo's plan. He asked gravely, what about the substitute materials? Eastern Nether Mansion got ahead of us as well, Little Gardhua said in a low voice. Everyone is preparing for war right now. The number of people going out to harvest has been reduced. The Yin Tomb guards were greatly lacking compared to Eastern Nether Mansion in terms of doing business. While they had been searching to buy all this time, they did not manage to buy much, and Eastern Nether Mansion got ahead of them. I understand. Zhuomo nodded. Little Gardhua raised his head and opened his mouth to speak. However, he did not manage to say anything and left dispiritedly. Zhuomo's plan was completely ruined. He had healed to the 22nd level of 36 levels. There were still 14 levels to go. In terms of progress, this was fast enough. However, Zhuomo had thought that he would quickly recover, and hadn't expected to encounter trouble here. Little Gardhua had not lied. Materials like the Nether Ghostine heavy wood grew in extreme environments. Only experts would be able to harvest them. But right now, with the battle upcoming, the Yin Tomb guards could not send experts to harvest Nether Ghostine heavy wood. As expected, the road to happiness was a bumpy one. Zhuomo did not feel restless. After wandering the endless void for a decade, he had learned patience. The Yin Tomb Ghost Lord could not be relied on. But when he thought about it, the benefits that Zhuomo had gotten from them surpassed what he had given. So even if there was no Nether Ghostine heavy wood, Zhuomo still did his best to forge Shin equipment and pseudo-Shin devices for them. When the war finally started, Zhuomo had forged about 3,000 sets of Shin equipment. This number astounded everyone who learned of it. 3,000 sets of Shin equipment. This used up most of the Yin Tomb guards' materials. The materials could not keep up with the progress. Something like this actually happened. The pseudo-Shin weapons of the Yin Tomb 5 ghosts were also successfully completed. Zhuomo had forged 5 completely different pseudo-Shin weapons according to their specialties. While 10 years had passed, and everyone's average Shin power had risen a level, the number of Shin device raiments had not changed greatly, even in the Shoujo world. The Shoujo world was held back by a lack of materials, and the Yaoma were held back by a lack of skilled forgers. The Yaoma were not stupid. While they did not have top forgers that could forge Shin devices, they still did all they could to gather top-level materials. They would never sell them. Therefore, materials that could be used to make Shin device raiments would never appear on the market. This formed a unique situation. The forgers of the Shoujo world were hampered by a lack of top materials. The Yaoma experts held on to their top materials. They were willing to let them rot rather than sell them. 5 pseudo-Shin weapons. In the Nether realm, they were definitely top level. The power of the Yin Tomb 5 ghosts grew with them. Including the Yin Tomb 5 ghosts, the higher-ups of the Yin Tomb guard was filled with confidence in this war. They had 3,000 sets of Shin equipment that was akin to giving wings to a tiger, the Yin Tomb guard. Also, the 5 pseudo-Shin weapons increased their confidence. They were filled with reverence and awe towards Zhuomo. They had never heard of anyone that could forge 3,000 Shin equipment of such quickly within 1 month on their own. It was terrifying. The existence of a person could change a war. Armed to their teeth, the Yin Tomb guards were filled with hope for the future. The only regret was the Yin Tomb Ghost Lord. His plan to obtain a Shin device was ruined due to a lack of materials. At this time, no one was willing to sell top-level materials to the Yin Tomb guards. However, what comforted him was Zhuomo still gifted him a pseudo-Shin device in thanks for the dark gold femur. After doing all this, Zhuomo prepared to explore the death eye of the sea of 10,000 boiling pools. There was not enough Nether Ghostine heavy wood, so Zhuomo thought of another method. Since the nether ghostine heavy wood was useful because the death energy purified the strands of vitality, then he would try and do the same. While the effect might be as good as the nether ghostine heavy wood, but sitting around and waiting was not Zuomo's style. Creating life from death was a problem that Zuomo had considered for a long time, and he had learned some things. He wanted to try and see if he could forge life out of death. If he could succeed, no longer relying on the nether ghostine heavy good was just one of the benefits. It also meant that his skill in life and death would reach an unprecedented height for him. Creating life out of death. He needed to find a land of death. The first that Zuomo thought of was the Death Eye in the Sea of 10,000 Boiling Pools. There was no place where death energy was greater than there. Zuomo was a decisive person. After thinking about it, he felt it was plausible and decided to try. He arranged for Qing Shao to keep teaching the Wu clan members and to wait for him to return. Qing Shao was unhappy but accepted it. The pitiful Wu clan members did not know what they were about to face was the ghastly training arranged by Qing Shao while he was in a terrible mood. Zuomo informed the Yin Tomb Ghost Lord. The Yin Tomb Ghost Lord tried to persuade him otherwise, but seeing Zuomo's determination, he did not persist. He agreed to look after Qing Shao and the Wu clan. The Yin Tomb Ghost Lord had no attention to spare for Zuomo because the fighting at the front had become intense. All of Zuomo's attention was focused on this trip to the Death Eye. He made sufficient preparations. Silly Bird and all the other assistants were present to guard against the danger that had appeared last time. He was pulling the 5 Shenwood coffins himself. The Death Eye was the place that was best suited for the Shenwood coffins to be nourished. He believed that with the density of death energy at the Death Eye, eldest Shixiang and the others might wake up earlier. Just like this, Zuomo dragged the 5 Shenwood coffins and followed his previous path towards the depths of the Death Eye. Chapter 875, Reunion. Dragging the Shenwood coffins with the little ones protecting him, Zuomo's little group traveled through the Sea of 10,000 Boiling Pools. With the start of the war there were far fewer people in the Sea of 10,000 Boiling Pools. The enormous sea was quiet and Zuomo did not encounter any people on their way. As they went deeper, the surrounding death energy became thicker. The 5 Shenwood coffins that Zuomo dragged released faint light. The surrounding death energy was being sucked into the Shenwood coffins, turned into base Shen power, and channeled into the 5 people in the coffins. Zuomo was not shocked by the transformation of the Shenwood coffins. What shocked Zuomo was the change in the king's horns. The king's horn was tied to Zuomo's belt. It gave off an extremely low sound. Zuomo felt a wave of heat come out of his blood. His entire body seemed to turn warm, fighting off the energy in the air. This time, the dark golden ball did not move. It seemed as though it knew the vibrations released by the king's horn was not an attack. Zuomo marveled inside. The king's horn really could directly influence the power in Mo blood. After his body warmed up, the illusions in front of him decreased greatly and the bone-chilling cold also lightened. The king's horn trembled slightly at his waist. Zuomo felt as though he was filled with power. As expected of the king's horn, Zuomo's confidence increased. With the help of the king's horn, he might be able to reach the Death Eye this time. He dragged the 5 Shenwood coffins as he continued to advance. Compared to him, the little ones clearly adjusted better. Silly Bird had the body of a phoenix that was immune to all evil and yin forces. Lil Black was sitting on Silly Bird's head as usual as it looked off into the distance. Lil Fire had swallowed countless amounts of void sky Li fire in the endless void. This kind of dark and evil energy was ineffective against it. Lil Pagoda was next to Lil Fire as its eyes blinked. The ghost mist child had started to refine the death energy into his body. He was made out of mist to start with. If he could incorporate death energy, he would have another attack. If he cultivated too many types, then it would be too heterogeneous. But inspired by the black gold seal soldier, he thought of a wonderful idea. He turned his body into 2 parts. His body was pure ghost mist, and his stomach was another space. There were all kinds of mist and poisons floating inside it. if he encountered a strong enemy and swallowed the other into his stomach. The power of that move would become stronger over time. The ghost mist child was full of joy. As expected, a scheme was more useful than brute force. Ah, if he was as smart and lowly as Black Gold. Black Gold could not understand ghost mist child's sorrow. He was a seal soldier, and the death energy did not influence on him. However, this death energy had a flavor he did not like and he could not eat it. This caused him to feel slightly hungry. He looked around and wanted a monster to jump out immediately so he could fill his stomach. Sunshine flew next to 10th grade, occasionally sprinkling all kinds of light towards 10th grade to ward away the death energy. 10th grade still had a cool expression as usual as he stared forward and flew forward murderously. He cultivated sword essence and he wasn't interested in death energy. The sidekick troop moved forward. However, they looked more like a gang that was wandering the streets and waiting to make trouble for someone and not like a well-trained elite military forces. Big brother, we've walked for so long, why isn't there anything? The Black Gold seal soldier couldn't resist but mutter. Zhuemo kept on walking as he said, what do you want? Something to eat. The Black Gold seal soldier appeared as though he was ravenous. No one paid attention to him. Zhuemo quickly moved past where he had stopped last time. The thick death energy finally became a pressure on everyone. 10th grade's crescent blade came out of its sheath. The eyes in that cool little face flashed with coldness. Black Gold seal soldier cracked his fists. The sway of his head lessened greatly. His eyes narrowed lightly. The other little ones were on their guard. If a monster jumped out now, they would be cut to death immediately. Everyone had traveled the endless void for a long time and were very experienced. The death energy here was too thick. It would be abnormal if no monsters formed here. Lil Black's two antennae waved madly. Ha! Finally about to open for business. No one compete with me. Black Gold seal soldier rubbed his fists together in excitement. 10th grade didn't even lift his eyelids as the crescent blade disappeared from his hand. A bloody sword energy entered the death energy in front of him. HM. 10th grade's eyes flashed as he suddenly pulled and twisted with his hands. A gray shadow suddenly smashed to the ground in front of them with the crescent blade piercing its body. 10th grade's 100 sacrifice soul-killing sword had reached a masterful level. The transformation of this move was not complex but it was appropriate. The experience of the endless void caused the motivated 10th grade to reach an astounding level. Hey hey hey! 10th grade! You are terrible. When I was. Black Gold seal soldier glared angrily at 10th grade. 10th grade did not seem to hear it. He beckoned and the crescent blade returned to his hand. Everyone else walked over and surrounded the gray shadow to examine it. Its appearance was unique. It did not have limbs and it appeared like a gray ball of flesh. Long dark gray tentacles covered it. The tentacles were thin and floated in the death energy like seagrass. This is disgusting. The Black Gold seal soldier had a disdainful expression. This thing could not rouse his appetite. Would something born of the death energy not be disgusting? Zhuemo said as he flipped the being over to examine it. The monster's body disappeared at a visible rate. It could be seen that the great majority of its body was made from death energy. In the end, a dark bead was left. Zhuemo picked it up. This bead isn't bad. It is higher quality than the death energy beads I made. Zhuemo was slightly surprised. His thoughts suddenly moved and Zhuemo took out the ghost fire from his ring. The figure of the female appeared in the ghost fire. Her figure was much more solid compared to before. While her features were still unclear, but it was much better than looking as though she would dissipate at any moment. Darren. She bowed elegantly. She did not use the term Grandmaster but Darren to show that she had submitted. Is this useful to you? Zhuemo reached out and revealed the black bead that he had just obtained. The female was slightly shocked. This death energy bead is extremely high in quality. Is Darren bestowing this to this servant? For you. Zhuemo threw it over. Thanks, Darren. The female was overjoyed. The flames flashed, and a tongue of flame wrapped around the death energy bead. This death energy bead was astounding high in quality. After consuming the death energy bead, her figure became even clearer, and her facial features became clear. She had a beautiful appearance and a calm presence. Zuomo said to the others, "Let's continue, be careful." Without Zuomo's warning, the little ones still knew that what was up ahead would not be peaceful. Along the way, they encountered a few more monsters like this. These monsters were most skilled in illusions and evil thoughts, but they were ineffective against Zuomo's group. Everyone's resistance towards evil thoughts was high, and with Sunshine who specialized in breaking illusions, the other people could focus on battle. They progressed quickly. However, they only obtained 3 death energy beads. Not all monsters had death energy beads. Zuomo was not frugal and gave all 3 of the death energy beads to the ghost fire. The woman of the ghost fire hadn't thought that Zuomo would be so generous and was grateful. She had hidden in the ghost fire for many years, and her soul was about to dissipate. If she did not encounter Zuomo, she would have dissipated after 20 to 30 years. If other people found her hiding among the fire, her outcome would be bad. Actually, she had felt slightly anxious. Zuomo was a forging grandmaster, how could he not know what her use was? If this was someone else, they would have forged her already. She only understood some when she saw Lil Pagoda, Lil Fire, and the others. Zuomo did know what her use was, but Zuomo had special feelings towards things that had souls. Pu Yao, Wei, the little ones, they were his best friends. And he was so rich that other people could not imagine it. He had an extremely large amount of materials, the Shin device nucleus that had not been forged, the parts of the Shin device that his father had left behind, the king's horn, the other materials he had obtained from the Een Tomb 5 ghosts and rare and valuable materials he obtained from the Endless Void. The entire shoujo world was furiously searching for peak materials to forge Shin devices, and Zuomo had stocked up on a batch. Once his Shin power recovered, he could forge true Shin devices. If he was not forced to, he did not want to forge spirits and souls that were alive. It was not that he respected life, but he treasured his friends. Gu has enough materials and doesn't care. Zuomo comforted himself like he was a rich tycoon. The density of death energy in the surroundings dramatically increased. The death beings that appeared became stronger and stronger. Fortunately, the moves of these beings born from death energy were simple. Zuomo's sidekicks were well-rounded and could attack both near or far and against individuals or groups. They crushed their way through. The quality of the death energy beads became higher and higher. The ghost fire had reached a limit on the death energy beads she ate. Yet no one was happy. The more they moved forward, the greater the pressure was. The monsters that appeared became stronger and stronger. They encountered a kind of monster whose body was intangible. None of their attacks were effective. In the end it was Sunshine who used a rarely used illusion-breaking spell to kill it. Everyone stopped. Looking at the scene in front of them, none of them had good expressions. This place was like a dividing line. There seemed to be a transparent barrier in front of them. On this side of the line was thick gray death energy. On the other side of the line, the color of the death energy was extremely faint, but Zuomo was not careless. It was not that there was no death energy ahead, but the death energy had become close to transparent. The almost transparent death energy gave Zuomo an even greater feeling of danger. What caused Zuomo to feel danger wasn't just the transparent death energy. A large number of gray pointed shapes passed through the air like a school of fire. They did not seem to notice the arrival of Zuomo and the others. Countless twisted shadows and colors formed and extinguished in the air. Zuomo and the others could make out beautiful song, sobbing, and screams. All kinds of sounds mixed together. Even Sunshine, who was skilled in breaking illusions, had a grave expression. These illusions here are top tier, and very strong. Sunshine's expression was slightly nervous. Hearing Sunshine's words, everyone's faces were slightly stiff. Any kind of method was extremely terrifying when it was top tier. It was the same with illusions. The line marked another world as they got here. Even Zhuo couldn't help but feel the urge to retreat. The monster they had encountered just now was as strong as the monsters they encountered in the endless void. As they went deeper, the monsters would definitely be even stronger. Top-tier illusory arts were terrifying. Zhuo and the others had encountered it once in the endless void and almost died. In top-tier illusions, time and space became blurry. You never knew if the fellows with you were true or false. Your demons and your emotions could become fatal enemies. It had mostly been luck that they had managed to escape that time. But even so, all of them had been wounded. So when they heard it was a top illusory art, everyone felt the urge to retreat. Just as Zhuo was hesitating, snap, light flashed and everything disappeared. A monster with 6 bone spikes on his back appeared in front of them. Zhuo felt that this monster was slightly familiar. He frowned and thought hard before his eyes widened. It's you. Sure, who they had encountered at the sealed extinction battlefield had 6 subordinates. This monster was one of them. Sure was here. Zhuo was slightly stunned and then he was overjoyed. In Zhuo's mind, the strongest person was not Chief Elder or Lin Qian, it was Sure. This old monster that had lived for more than 10,000 years and was of unfathomable power. Zhuo felt that no one else would be able to do something like sealing the sun crystal seed. The monster suddenly spoke, Master knew that you have come and had me come welcome you. It seemed as though the being rarely talked from how raw its voice was. However, its gaze was gentle and without any enmity. Thinking of Shure's impossible moves and unfathomable power, Zhuo was immediately filled with hope. Shure would definitely have a way to wake eldest Shixiang and the others. He would definitely have a way to fix Zhuo's body. Zhuo felt as though his mood went through a roller coaster and quickly became better. You are living here? Zhuo asked the bone spike monster curiously. Yes. The bone spike monster nodded. Zhuo stared in wonder. You are really strong to find such a strange place. The bone spike monster chuckled. Following the bone spike monster, Zhuo's group did not encounter any obstruction along the way. However, the group was experienced and their hearts trembled when they saw the defenses along the way. They knew that if they had tried to charge in using brute force, they would not be able to make it through. Zhuo finally understood why no one dared to come close to the Death Eye. But he changed his way of thinking. Such thick death energy was most suited to Shure. Ever since their parting at the sealed extinction battlefield, he had never seen Shure again. He had not expected to reunite here. Surprises such as encountering someone familiar in an unfamiliar place was a joy. The area of the Death Eye was greater than they imagined. They walked for a long time. On the way, Zhuo saw many death energy pools. The death energy pools here were filled with water, but Zhuo could see that they were not water, but made of extremely pure and dense death energy. A drop of the clear pool water here could be sold for a great price outside. This really was a stunning place. Zhuo and the others marveled inwardly. Yet when Zhuo saw Shure, he was shocked. Chapter 876. Sure, if it was not for that face, Zhuo would definitely not have recognized Shure. When they had parted, Shure's body had been split apart from the middle with one half being multicolored. Yet right now, his body was like jade and released astounding vibrations. Only that shriveled face was still familiar. Shure seemed even more powerful. But for some reason, Zhuo had a bad feeling. The stronger the person was, the greater their control over their power, and they would not easily leak their power outside. Shure seemed to be a fiercely burning flame. While hot, it gave Zhuo the feeling that it could not be maintained. When Zhuo's gaze accidentally swept across Shure's legs, he stilled. There was nothing under Shure's knees. Zhuo stilled and stammered out a question. Shure, your body. In Zhuo's mind, Shure could do anything. No one was stronger than Shure, not even the chief elder of Tianhuan. How could someone so peerlessly strong become like this? Shur saw Zhuemo and showed a smile. This caused his gray-white face to look strange and terrifying. I have lived long enough. But... Zhuemo opened his mouth but didn't know what to say. He suddenly realized that after spending 10,000 years in the sealed extinction battlefield, was Shur's life about to reach an end? It had been more than 10 years since they first met at the battlefield of sealed extinction. The sun crystal seed that Shur had given him back then had saved his life many times. The sun crystal seed was the reason that he had achieved his cultivation. He remembered when they parted, Shur said he was going to find his homeland. As though he saw Zhuemo's pain, gentleness flashed through Shur's eyes. He said with a smile, even the strongest cannot withstand the march of time. I have lived longer than those of my era, there is nothing I am dissatisfied by, you do not need to be sad for me. Zhuemo was silent. A moment later, he raised his head. Shur, did you find your homeland? This is my homeland, Shur said with a laugh. Zhuemo stilled. Ah, this is your homeland? Moments later, he suddenly realized and his expression froze on his face. He stammered out, You are the Nether King? Shur saw Zhuemo's shocked expression and laughed. Is this very strange? Zhuemo lost the ability to speak. He had never thought that Shur was the Nether King. But when he recovered from his shock, he felt that it was normal. To be able to silently unite the Nether Realm in such a short amount of time, Zhuemo felt that no one other than Shur would have managed to accomplish it. Shur was very happy at shocking Zhuemo so much. He examined Zhuemo and said with surprise, You have progressed very quickly, already God level. Oh, you are wounded. After he said those last words, Shur's brow furrowed. Is there someone so strong right now? Zhuemo narrated the matter with the chief elder of Tianhuan in detail. Shur listened and nodded as he said, No wonder, your luck is good. Do not worry, this place is suited for healing. I can see that you have already some understanding of this. The true meaning of Nether is not death, but life. This is the Shin methodology I cultivated in the past. In my hands, it has been refined and perfected. Take a look. It will be of help to your recovery. However, there is no need to cultivate it. The Nether Shin power and your Sun Shin power will conflict. Then he swept a look across the Shinwood coffins and said, Your luck is really good to find the 10,000 life Shinwood. I can help you wake them up. Really? Zhuemo was overjoyed. He widened his eyes. You can awaken them. Actually, you have already started on the right path, Shur explained. However, your comprehension is shallow. If you want to wake them, you will need 10 years if you study the Shin methodology I give you. 10 years. Zhuemo faltered and hurriedly said, Then you do it. Shur's gaze was burning and with a hint of mirth. Then his expression became serious. Then you have to promise me some things. As long as I can accomplish them, anything. Zhuemo patted his chest. Actually, even if Shur did not help him and needed his help, he would do it. Shur said, When your wounds heal, you will truly be God level. While you have just entered God level, you are now barely acceptable as the successor to my position. Ah! Zhuemo was dumbstruck. A moment later, he said slowly, You mean Nether King? Yes. Shur nodded and said, I spent so much power to unite them. I do not want them to divide after I die. After saying this, Shur looked wryly at Zhuemo, You have gotten a great bargain. Mo Cloud Sea and the Nether Realm, you have the ability to conquer the world. Zhuemo scratched his head. Theoretically, I did benefit. But, why me? Why? Shur roared with laughter and then said seriously, There are several reasons. 1. You have the ability, God-level power, and the support of Mo Cloud Sea. You have the ability to establish yourself on the throne. I do not want the Nether Realm to turn into chaos after my death. Secondly, you are not a bad person. Mo Cloud Sea has been good under your rule. You have no bias against the Mo, I do not have to worry about that. Third, you have good luck. Zhuemo still felt as though he was in a dream. Good fortune had come too fast and suddenly. Power is meaningless to me. The reason I united the Nether Realm was because this is my homeland, Shi said coolly. Zhuemo's mind quickly cleared. He said with slight disbelief. Outside, Eastern Nether Mansion and the Een Tomb guards are fighting fiercely. Are you going to sit by and watch? No kind of happiness comes without experiencing pain, Shi said coolly. He glanced at Zhuemo. I have made arrangements. Zhuemo suddenly realized. I understand. You set this up, you just want to see who is going to meet your expectations, right? Shi smiled but did not reply. He said, recover first. Once you recover, there might be a need for you to appear. All right. Zhuemo felt the same. If he could recover completely, he would be of greater help to Shi. He actually had many more things he did not say. Shi's legs under the kneecap were gradually dissipating as though there was an invisible mouth slowly consuming Shi's body. Zhuemo knew that Shi's life was really at an end. None of this could be stopped. Even Zhuemo, who had god-level cultivation, was terrified at this kind of complete and unstoppable destruction. Zhuemo felt extremely distressed. While he knew that even the strongest would die one day, while he knew that Shi, who had lived for tens of thousands of years, was calm and peaceful, and had already seen to everything. But why was he still sad? Why was he still feeling pain? In his last throes, Shi was probably at the strongest had ever been in his life because his life was being burned to the end. Shi did not calmly wait for the arrival of death and chose to burn his remaining lifespan at the end. What did Shi want to do? He must have some wish he wanted to complete. Zhuemo didn't know, but he could clearly feel that Shi had indescribable and deep feelings for this land. Homeland? Zhuemo thought silently. This term was unfamiliar to him. But no matter what, he would use all of his power to help Shi complete his last wishes. Shi taught Zhuemo the important points of creating life out of death. Zhuemo listened carefully. After just a while, Zhuemo felt he had gained a lot. Shi's skill in this level was much greater than Zhuemo. Every one of his words were to the point and Zhuemo was entranced. Shi spoke for 3 whole days. In these 3 days, Shi's light grew even brighter, his presence even stronger. He was like a burning flame that no one could look directly at. Yet, Shi's knees had now disappeared. Zhuemo forced down his grief as he worked to repair his body. The death energy pools had accumulated the pure death energy after countless eons in the Death Eye. After Shi's teachings, Zhuemo quickly found the crux. He quickly found that the vitality that came from the water in the death energy pools was purer than the vitality from the nether ghostine heavy wood. His wounds would quickly recover. Shi sat on the throne and was in a daze. Are you afraid? Shi suddenly asked Sand Puppet. Sand Puppet rumbled, not afraid. If I die, you will also die, Shi said. Then let's die, Sand Puppet said. Metal Ox, how long have you followed me? Shi turned his face to ask. The Iron Ox tilted his head and thought for a while before saying, 12,042 years. More than 10,000 years, time has passed so quickly, Shi lamented. He suddenly said, if I want you all to live. 5 gazes suddenly locked onto him. The temperature in the hall suddenly dropped and the hall was filled with murderousness. Shi roared with laughter. All right, you will feel life is dull and become bored if you continue to live. Since that's the case, then let us do something together. The murderousness disappeared. He's come, Black Mist suddenly said. Have him come in, Shi said coolly. In this moment, he was the authoritative Nether King. The incomer saw Shi and was overcome with excitement, kneeling to the floor. King! His voice was choked and filled with excitement. Great! Great! King! King is fine. Fine. Stand up, Shi said coolly. He looked at the large man in front of him. This tattooed large man was one of the 4 Nether Lords, an Mo who ruled the Western Jail Mansion. An Mo, you worked hard recently, Shur said calmly. This subordinate is not burdened, and Mo shook his head and said with worry, King, Eastern Nether Mansion and the Een Tomb guards are fighting intensely. The fatalities on both sides are high. Should we interfere? As he said this, his eyes were bright, and he didn't look as though he was injured at all. I knew of Jia Man's ambitions a long time ago, Shur said coolly. Yuzhou was also within my expectations. But Hai Bing has disappointed me. And Mo's heart felt a wave of coldness. He knew that King had announced Jia Man and Hai Bing's death sentences. As long as King was alive, no one could defeat King, not even the 4 Nether Lords put together. King, give the order. All of Western Jail Mansion is sleeping with their weapons by their beds, and can move at any moment, and Mo said loudly. Wait a few more days, you will meet the next Nether King. Shur was unaffected. He then glanced at Mo, I hope that you will assist my successor just like you have assisted me. And Mo's body shook and he exclaimed, the next Nether King. Chapter 877, New King Zhua Mo opened his eyes. His starry-like eyes flashed with joy. He finally recovered. The feeling of power in his body was so intoxicating, so familiar yet strange. 10 years. 10 whole years. He had finally regained his power, and it was unbelievable power. Confidence filled every one of Zhua Mo's cells. All of the problems and obstacles were so insignificant in his eyes. Power. This was power. Zhua Mo roared into the sky. 10 years of struggle, 10 years of hardship, 10 years of treading on thin ice, all of it was vented in this long howl. Hearing Zhua Mo's roar, the little ones and Shur all hurriedly rushed over. Big brother, you've recovered? The black gold seal solder asked impatiently. His eyes were wide, and his expression was both nervous and anticipatory. Zhua Mo roared with laughter. Recovered. Ha 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 ha. Great. Big brother has recovered. Big brother has recovered. The black gold seal soldier put his hands on his waist and laughed into the sky. Ha! My good days are coming. I want to be a wastrel. I want to eat and wait for death, I want. His wild laughter suddenly stopped as Silly Bird kicked him into the air. She clearly felt that it was not the appropriate time for this person to announce such unambitious things. Silly Bird used her wings to wipe away her tears. Her feathers were as bright and deep red as fire. Lil Black, who was on her head, furiously waved its 2 antennae. Lil Pagoda and Lil Fire leapt into Zhua Mo's arms with a cry and started to nudge and wriggle. 10th grade's cold face had a rare smile. He didn't know what to say. Sunshine flew happily around 10th grade. Ghost Mist Child's tears flowed down his face in joy. The tears were endless and sprouted out like a spring. Shur looked at the celebrating group and decided to not interrupt them. A long time later, Zhua Mo and the little ones finally calmed down. Zhua Mo finally noticed Shur beside him and said bashfully, I was too excited. Sorry. No matter, the feeling is good. Shur smiled, his gaze reminiscing. Memories so long ago he almost forgot them rose in his mind. The unfamiliar feeling caused his thoughts to wander. Was he becoming so emotional because he was about to die? Shur laughed in a self-mocking manner inside and then recovered his calm. Let's go, I have some things to tell you. All right. Zhua Mo stood up briskly. He knew that every drop of time was valuable to Shur right now. Following Shur, Zhua Mo came to the large hall. He saw an Mo and also the shock in Mo's eyes. Sit there. Shur pointed at the elevated throne and turned his face to say to Zhua Mo, okay. Zhua Mo did not refuse or ask why. He walked to the throne, turned and sat. Starting from today, you are not just the king of Mo Cloud Sea, you are also the Nether King. Shur's voice was calm but was filled with indescribable power. And Mo's mouth was wide and his expression full of disbelief. He guessed that the white-haired youth was the successor had been chosen when he saw Zhua Mo. When he saw Zhuo Mo's white hair, he thought of the white-haired grandmaster who was a popular topic of discussion recently. But this was not enough to shock him so. The greatest shock were the words that King said, King of Mo Cloud Sea. He was the King of Mo Cloud Sea. He was Zhuo Mo. He was still alive. He had returned. Countless thoughts attacked Mo's mind and stunned him. Shi did not seem to notice Mo's loss of composure. His tone did not change at all. Mo, starting from today, you need to assist the new king. Mo shook and refocused. He could hear that King was making arrangements for after his death. His heart was filled with unvoiced sorrow. He looked seriously at Shi and said, King's orders, my mission. Then he turned and bowed to Zhuo Mo, this subordinate Mo greets King. He did not know much about Zhuo Mo, the most of which were those almost legendary stories. Since King had chosen Zhuo Mo, then Zhuo Mo was certainly the most suitable choice. Zhuo Mo smiled at Mo, don't call me King, you can call me Zhuo Mo. Zhuo Mo was at ease and did not show any wariness. Mo could not see any traces of joy from Zhuo Mo's face. He had accepted the throne as though it was natural. Suddenly, Mo had more confidence in King's choice. In the past, I hoped to unite the Nether Realm as fast as possible, so I left the 4 Nether Lords. It seems now that the decision was incorrect. Shi did not avoid admitting his past mistake. Jia Man and Hai Xn Bing will definitely rebel. Yu Zhe is not to be relied on. However, I have preparations and you do not need to worry too much. Zhuo Mo listened carefully and did not interrupt. I have told all of Nether Realm that the new king is about to ascend to the throne. The leaders of every faction will go to the Nether King Palace to meet you. Shi looked directly at Zhuo Mo, you go, accept the Nether Realm, you must receive the acceptance of the majority of them. All right. Zhuo Mo did not oppose this. He was steady and confident. Shi gazed at Zhuo Mo and suddenly said, I will leave the Nether Realm to your care. I hope that you will let it recover peace and calm as soon as possible, no matter what you do in order to do so. All right. Zhuo Mo promised seriously. Go prepare, and then leave, Shi suddenly said, leave those 5 people here. I will wake them. This is the last thing I can help you with. I cannot forge, but leave the dragon heart and the ghost fire, I'll do it. Suddenly, Zhuo Mo had a feeling he was going to cry. Was it the sorrow at such a strong person about to pass away? Or the reminders of what having an elder was like? Or being moved by the deep emotion for one's homeland? Zhuo Mo wasn't clear. He raised his head and tried to make himself show a smile. His tone was solemn as though he was making an oath. I will treat the Nether Realm like I treat Mo Cloud Sea. Shi smiled and said gently, go. Nan Yu was practicing hard in the 10-finger prison. The present 10-finger prison was not as popular as before. Right now, not many just focused on cultivating consciousness. This place was more a place for people to communicate. However, Mo Cloud Sea Shen power was built on a foundation of the 3 powers. Due to this, the Yao of Mo Cloud Sea still had the habit of entering the 10-finger prison to cultivate. Right now, the Yao in Mo Cloud Sea were more common than when Darren had left. Ming Yu's purging of the Yao ranks had never stopped. Many families faced calamity. The Blue Flower family had been affected as well. At that time, they thought of Qinghua Shui. They managed to contact Qinghua Shui after great effort in hopes that their family would be allowed to move to Mo Cloud Sea. Qinghua Shui reported this to Gongsun Cha. With Gongsun Cha's agreement, the Blue Flower family moved into Mo Cloud Sea. Unexpectedly, the movement of the Blue Flower family caused many other families to follow suit. They all requested to enter Mo Cloud Sea. Gongsun Cha did not hesitate in agreeing. In the past, Mo Cloud Sea's problem had been that they had too many people but not enough land. As they expanded over the years, Mo Cloud Sea's territories had broadened greatly. Many places had more land than people. It hadn't been a problem to settle these families. Due to the influence of this wave of immigrants, the number of Yao in Mo Cloud Sea was much higher than before. The present Mo Cloud Sea had truly become a gathering place for the Yao, Mo, and Xiuzhe. Just like usual, Nanyu sat thinking after a day of cultivating was finished. Every time at this moment, she would think of the past when Darren had taught her the South Sky Arrow art. She had always persisted in cultivating in the place where Darren had first taught her Yao arts. She wondered how Darren was. She seemed to be easygoing, but she was actually very sensitive. Darren's paper crane filled everyone with confidence in the future. Everyone was working hard and waiting for Darren to return. However, 10 years had passed. While Lil Miss Darren was still dutiful, while everyone was still persisting, Nanyu perceptively realized the change in attitudes in some people. The lower ranks were in turbulence, especially the families that had joined Mo Cloud Sea later on. They didn't feel any loyalty to Zhuo Mo. They felt that Mo Cloud Sea's ruler-less state could not continue. Rather than waiting meaninglessly like this, it was better to choose a new master of Mo Cloud Sea first. Lil Miss Darren accidentally heard this once and was enraged. He killed that group of people. No one dared to discuss this topic openly, but discussions in private did not calm. Everyone who had been with Darren to start Mo Cloud Sea was extremely angry about discussions like this. A divide gradually appeared between the old and the new factions. Darren, return soon. Nanyu felt great urgency. Suddenly, Nanyu stilled. She rubbed her eyes. Did she miss Darren so much she was see a delusion? Nanyu asked herself. After she finished rubbing her eyes and opening them, that figure still stood there calmly and smiled at her. Nanyu was stunned where she was. Suddenly, tears poured down. Darren. It is you. Is it really you? Nanyu said incoherently and with great excitement. Yes, it's me. A smile spread on Zhuo Mo's face. Nanyu could not stop her sobs as her vision blurred. Gongsun Cha was working hard on the desk. Of everyone, his burdens were the greatest. He was struggling to manage every day. Every matter of Mo Cloud Sea would gather at his table. He knew that he was alright at war, but he was just acceptable at other fields. But other than him, no one could take up the position. In military matters, Bihan could share the burden. Ma Fan, Tang Fei, and the others had grown up, and he did not need to worry so much. But managing the people was where he wasn't skilled. It wasn't just tiring to deal with the matters, it was also painful. He felt extremely uncomfortable spending every day on these complex and petty matters. He really wanted to just focus on leading a battalion and fighting. That would be so pleasurable. But Shixiang was not here. Other than him, no one else would be accepted by the group. No matter how painful it was, he could only grit his teeth and continue. He could not have Shixiang come back to a mess. Suddenly, Nanyu charged in. Gongsun Cha raised his head and saw Nanyu's tear-streaked face. He couldn't help but laugh. What is it? Nanyu, who bullied you? I saw Darren. Nanyu panted. Snap. The brush in Gongsun Cha's hand snapped, landed on the ground. He seemed to be struck by lightning. Chapter 878, 10 years. After completing his daily cultivation, Fei Lei jumped out of the medicinal pool. The muscles of his refined body did not bulge out like before, but each curve was even tighter and well-defined. He put on clothes and walked out of the cultivation room. There was a large hall outside the cultivation room. People chatted and boasted in here. Their lives were actually very dull. Other than the routine cultivation, everyone would only go out to raid when they lacked resources. Fortunately, this was a group of not-so-normal cultivation maniacs. No one felt that there was anything wrong. Old Fei, how much money is left in the account? When are we going out again? Someone shouted. Fei Lei glanced over and snorted, did you recently achieve a breakthrough? Bored? Fei Lei had great authority among this group, not just because he managed the accounts, but because he had traveled far and wide to find each of them in the past. What breakthrough, he's been a failure recently, I'm far ahead of him, someone added in. You are saying I'm a failure? You're done for. If you have balls, let's go to the sparring field. Ha! Who is afraid of you? Let's go. The two ferociously walked towards the sparring field and immediately pulled away a large group of people that wanted to watch. Fei Lei sat down and then listened to the broadcast of the 7-star MO insect on recent major events. Suddenly, he stilled and listened carefully. The 7-star MO insect was similar to the sound tablet of the Shouja. The new Nether King was ascending to the throne. They were stationed close to the Nether Realm, but they rarely went there. Ever since the Nether Kinga appeared and the Nether Realm was united, that place was not suited for bandits to survive. King! Fei Lei suddenly became restless. The blood summons of the past had allowed him to find his destiny. He had worked so hard to find these problematic youths. The name he had given them back then was the King's Horn. He had done everything he could do in the hopes that one day, he could accomplish his mission. He had been filled with confidence, especially after Liang Wei took over the battalion and showed outstanding talent. Fei Lei had been filled with hope towards the future. He had never seen such a powerful and talented battle general. He had believed that under Liang Wei's training, these young and rebellious youths would achieve the glory that belonged to them just like their ancestors. Just like the name he first gave this battalion, King's Horn. However, the king was not here now. Fei Lei was filled with pain. When the news of the Battle of the Central Plains reached them, when he and Liang Wei found out, it was like lightning had struck them. They immediately lost their motivation. If even the king didn't exist, then who was the horn blown for? As expected, Liang Wei could not find Pu. While Liang Wei would go to Pu Pu's home for battle generals every few days, he would return with disappointment each time. The same events repeated for 10 years. Fei Lei admired Liang Wei greatly. The predicament that this battalion had faced back then was almost unimaginable. Their connection to MO Cloud C had been cut off, their materials and Shin equipment cut off. Other than Yu Qinlai, who was occasionally able to provide them with some help, all other supplies were stopped. However, Yu Qinlai was working under Ming Yu Yi and the help he could provide was limited. Having lost the sense of belonging, the scarcity of funds and resources, the battalion looked as though it was about to collapse. But they didn't. Liang Wei led them to raid like bandits to replenish their supplies. However, Liang Wei always controlled their slaughter. He did not want them to truly descend to become bandits. They were a battalion, not bandits. Liang Wei told them that they had received news from MO Cloud C that Darren would come back. Liang Wei changed the name of the battalion back from the Wolf Head Thousand Monster Camp to King's Horn. But Fei Lei knew that their contact with MO Cloud C had stopped a long time ago. But Fei Lei was also willing to believe this lie. He also saw a thread of hope when MO Cloud C did not descend into chaos. Maybe Darren would return. They struggled to survive like this. Liang Wei's viciousness allowed each of them to not fear the difficulties. Yu Qinlai would occasionally send them intelligence of some rich targets. This had been of great help to them. Few could imagine that a group of bandits like this had maintained daily battalion training for 10 years. Each of their raids was like a battle, and they would design a complete battle plan. They did not relax at all. However, Fei Lei knew that they could not wait forever. Time would cause purpose and loyalty to slowly fade. A battalion that lacked loyalty would only fall to become bandits. At that time, they would truly become bandits. Fei Lei's heart was full of pain. But he did not show it. Just like usual, he wandered off in his mind as he thought. One would never detect any worry from his stern face. He always controlled his emotions. He knew his influence on the battalion. Out of the corner of his eyes, he saw Liang Wei come in. Fei Lei raised his head and was about to call Liang Wei over to discuss their battle plan as Yu Qinlai had sent over another message. But when his gaze landed on Liang Wei's face, he stilled. It was the first time Fei Lei had seen Liang Wei with such an expression. Liang Wei's face was flushed red as though he was drunk. His facial muscles were unconsciously twitching, his steps unsteady. Fei Lei thought he would fall at any moment. His wolf-like eyes were misty. Had something happened? Fei Lei's heart jumped. Suddenly, he recalled that this was usually the time when Liang Wei went to Pu Pu's home for battle generals. Had something? Fei Lei's expression suddenly turned pale and his heart almost stopped beating. His eyes were wide as he started at Liang Wei, unable to make any sound. He's come back. Liang Wei, who was as vicious as a wolf, murmured. Fei Lei felt the blood rush to his head, his legs weakening as he fell to the ground. A long time later, like a person who had almost suffocated to death, when the air reached his lungs, his body started to tremble. Fei Lei sobbed loudly. 10 years of waiting. Anticipation, longing, hope, hopelessness, pain, endurance, all of it within these 10 years of waiting. The stern man cried like a child. Liang Wei's eyes were rimmed in red, and tears rose, but he gritted his teeth and tried to control his tears so that they would not flow down. He used so much force that his face was twitching. He didn't dare to speak. He was afraid if he relaxed slightly, the tears would fall down. He was like a wolf, how could he cry? He crouched down next to Fei Lei and patted Fei Lei's shoulder. He continued to pat. They were the best partners. Right now, and in the future. He knew the emotion and effort Fei Lei had invested into his battalion. He knew just how difficult and painful this past decade had been for Fei Lei, just like he knew that the pain Fei Lei endured these 10 years was far greater than his. He was only here in order to fight, to create his own battalion. He waited in order to repay the other for giving him the opportunity. However, Fei Lei was not the same. That was his purpose, his lifelong mission. Other than this, Fei Lei had to be responsible for these youths that he had recruited personally. This feeling of responsibility had tormented this man for 10 years. Suddenly, Fei Lei stopped sobbing. He wiped his tears and said in a hoarse voice, "Where is he?" Liang Wei recovered his calm and his eyes flashed. "In Nether Realm." Nether Realm? Fei Lei was astounded. He's the new Nether King. Liang Wei was also astounded, but at this time, he admired Fei Lei's almost dazed expression. Fei Lei was in a daze for a long time before he murmured, "King's Horn. We are the King's Horn. He instructed that we travel to the Nether Realm as soon as possible, he needs guards." Liang Wei recovered his calm. He's in danger. Fei Lei changed expression. Liang Wei's expression also became grave. He did not say, but he said for us to meet up with him immediately. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go. Fei Lei unhesitatingly stood and moved quickly. Looking as Fei Lei recovered his vitality and spirit, Liang Wei's lips curved in a hint of a smile. His wolf-like eyes also flashed with fire and fighting spirit. Silent for 10 years, do you still remember that youth, Liang Wei, that sprinted after the enemy for 10,000 li? 10 years had passed, the youth had become middle-aged. And it was time for the horn to be sounded. Liang Wei balled his fists. The news that the new Nether King was ascending to the throne shook the world. Ever since the Nether King united the Nether Realm 10 years ago, the Nether Realm immediately became one of the most important factions in the world. However, this Nether King had always been low-key and never communicated with the outside world. However, no one doubted the power of the Nether King. Up until now, the Nether Realm was the only place that had not been touched by large-scale war. Compared to the chaotic Hundred Savage Realm, the reason Nether Realm was strong was because of the appearance of the Nether King. The Nether Realm that was thought of the most stable suddenly had the news that a new king was ascending to the throne. How could it not be a shock? The Nether King had just united the Nether Realm 10 years ago. Why was the Nether King abdicating? Was the Nether King's life at end? People knew very little about this new king. They just knew that he would be taking the throne in a month at Nether King Palace. The new Nether King was the appointed successor by the old Nether King. Theoretically, there was nothing to argue about his ascension. However, the upcoming ascension of the new Nether King was filled with uncertainties. Would the other factions submit? The authority of the first Nether King was obtained through war. But the new Nether King lacked this authority. Of the 4 Nether Lords, only an Mo and Yuzha openly supported the new king. Other than this, the Een Tomb Ghost Lord also supported the new king, but they were fighting fiercely against Eastern Nether Mansion. The silence of Eastern Nether Mansion and Northern Plains Ice Mansion also caused people to have a negative outlook on the new Nether King. 2 of the 4 Nether Lords were silent. It was even harder to predict the reactions of other factions of the Nether Realm. Would the coronation of the new Nether King become the catalyst for the division of Nether Realm? No one knew. The coronation ceremony at Nether King Palace would give the final answer. Due to this, the coronation ceremony at Nether King Palace attracted the attention of the world. The rumor was that there were more than 10,000 leaders that were going to attend the coronation of the new king. Adding on the guards that accompanied them, the attendance at this ceremony would surpass 3 million people. This was the largest ceremony of Nether Realm in history. The Nether Realm was one of the largest factions in the world at the moment. Its development would greatly impact the affairs of the world. All of this, when chased back to the source, gathered on one person. The new Nether King. Chapter 879, Meet Up. The troops flew above barren ground. This place was unpopulated and very close to the border between Nether Realm and Hundred Savage Realm. Suddenly, Mo said, "Let's stop here." And Mo unhesitatingly ordered the troops to stop. This army was not large, about 1,000 people, but they were the strongest of Western Jail Mansion's people. Mo had been secretly observing the troops all this time. In his eyes, Mo was very skilled. The troops were also elite. While their Shin equipment was not the best, they had their unique fighting method. Mo was a classic-style battle general that did not like fighting for power and was methodical in carrying out his methods. His men followed his style, decisive and quick in carrying out their orders. How is the fighting between Eastern Nether Mansion and Een Tomb Guards? Mo asked. Since he had taken on this business, Mo would not leave it. Eastern Nether Mansion has lost, Jia Man has killed himself. Mo said cleanly. He lamented inside, he knew that the old Nether King had plans prepared. Otherwise, how could Eastern Nether Mansion lose so quickly, with so many of their forces remaining, and without apparent cause? The Een Tomb Guards were much weaker than Eastern Nether Mansion, and Eastern Nether Mansion also possessed stronger battle generals than the Een Tomb Guards. While the Een Tomb 5 Ghosts matched the elite fighters of the 4 mansions, that was just an individual power. In terms of directing in battle, they were much weaker. The Eastern and Western Mansion were the 2 mansions that had the largest number of quality battle generals in Nether Realm. Mo made a sound. He knew that Shur would definitely have prepared a killing move that would reverse the situation after planning something like this. He refocused and started to think. Since Shur had given the Nether Realm to him, he would not fail Shur. He had Mo gather all the popular topics of discussion about the new Nether King. After he finished reading them, he found that the great majority of people had a cautious attitude about his succession. Primarily because Shur's authority was still here, there were not many that dared to publicly rebel. In private, they did not have a good outlook on him. Mo knew that this was because they doubted his strength. Mo was familiar with Mo. They revered the strong, so the past kings had been the absolute strongest. Shur had been the same. Showing muscle. A faint smile rose on the corner of Mo's lips. Mo was also observing the new king at the same time. The new king was not of many words, experienced in action, and he could not measure the other's power. This astounded him. Mo was one of the 4 Nether Lords. Few knew that he was actually the strongest among the Nether Lords because he was the only one that received the Nether King's guidance. He was low-key in conduct and he did not like fighting. Even the other 3 Nether Lords did not know his true strength. But even as strong as he was, he couldn't see the new king's strength. While shocked, it also increased his confidence. Seeing the king deep in thought, he did not make a sound as he sent out a patrol. They were just 1,000 people. He knew the potential threat and many factions that would risk it. There was no harm in being careful. And Mo ordered the scouts to increase their range. Suddenly, his expression tense and he shouted, "Prepare to fight." The ranks around him immediately entered combat formation. And Mo's gaze looked towards the northwest. The scout from that direction had sent back an urgent report. There was a battalion that was coming in at astounding speed. Soon, the scouts appeared in his field of view. The scout made a hand motion to indicate to prepare for battle before he entered the rear ranks. A group of black dots appeared in the distant horizon. The little dots came quickly. Almost in the blink of an eye, the incomers reached them. And Mo's gaze turned grave. Elite. His eyes were keener than everyone else and he saw more clearly. This battalion looked loose in their ranks, but in reality, all of the people maintained an appropriate distance from each other. It was clear that this was a battalion that had been formed for a long time, and the members worked well together. Each member seemed to move positions of their own will, but their comrades would unconsciously move up to take the empty positions. This kind of instinctive movement would pass quickly through the ranks. This battalion looked like a quicksilver flow. The flow spilled out. The battalion at the front had a hard expression. From far away, an Mo could feel a strong and vicious presence. An Mo suddenly felt the pressure increase. His expression turned even more serious. If he was not seeing it with his own eyes, he would not believe that Mo battle general could create such a refined and variable battalion. The Xiuzha had organized ranks and cared greatly about battle formations. Only Ya battalions would have such refined and variable ranks. The Mo did not care about the shape of the ranks at all. They only had to gather the power of the men to the battle general. Due to this, Mo battalions had the loosest ranks among the races. But this battalion completely upturned Mo's knowledge. When did the Nether Realm have such a strange battalion? The other did not decrease their speed as they charged over. The closer they came, the stronger the impact of the others' rolling ranks made. The members of the battalion that had slightly weaker mentality subconsciously prepared to attack. And Mo's expression turned cold. All of his stray thoughts were thrown away. If the incomers came into their attack range, he would unhesitatingly attack. No one would be able to rampage in front of him. At this time, this strange battalion seemed to go against his expectations and suddenly stop against the momentum. That strange feeling was so uncomfortable one wanted to spit blood. An Mo forced his hand. He had almost started an attack. His heart suddenly jumped. Such a powerful battle general. The other had clearly already estimated his attack range and just stopped at the perimeter of his attack range. It was Mo's first time encountering such a powerful battle general. While the two had not fought yet, he was still amazed. The wind was murderous, and the groups were silent. The commander at the front suddenly dismounted his steed. Whoosh, the entire battalion dismounted, their movements in unison. The ranks divided, and a Yao walked out to reach the side of the general. The two stood shoulder to shoulder and looked in the direction of Mo's battalion. What was? A thought flashed through Mo's head. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw King step out of the ranks to stand in front of the group. The two were excited when they saw Zhua Mo, but they both bowed first. Liang Wei. Liang Wei took a deep breath. His voice was solemn. Fei Lei. Fei Lei forced down his excitement as he said loudly. We have led the king's horn to come guard our king, the two gravely shouted in unison. The dignified and serious sounds that were like sworn oaths echoed in the vast wilderness. All hail the king. The shouts of thousands of people were like thunder that caused the wilderness to tremble. Each person was trembling with excitement. Excitement, ecstasy, and exhilaration flashed through their eyes. 10 years, they could finally proclaim this phrase. Many people had tears streaming down their faces. They recalled how Fei Lei had found them in remote and obscure places, and told them of the past glories of their ancestors, recalled how they had traveled to their camp in their beggar-like clothing, but took on the name the King's Horn, which made them look like a joke, recalled how many layers of skin they shed in order to satisfy Liang Wei's strict training, recalled the hope that had grown fainter and fainter over the past 10 years as they raided to survive, maintained that they were a battalion despite their actions, and declared they were a battalion with a purpose. They had never seen Zhua Mo before, they didn't even know what Zhua Mo looked like. But every one of them, starting from the first day, was told that they would fight for this person. To fight for the king, to obtain the past glories. That was their belief. That illusory figure that had appeared countless times in their minds finally became clear. All of their beliefs suddenly became tangible. They were not idiots, they were not bandits. They were the King's Horn, they were a battalion with belief. They would possess the glory promised to them. Zhua Mo looked at this battalion with excitement. All he knew about Pu Yao and Wei's plans were the names Liang Wei and Fei Lei. Originally, he hadn't had any hopes for this battalion. Zhua Mo knew just how difficult it would be to wait for 10 years without a message. When he had encountered Liang Wei at Pu Pu's home for battle generals, his shock and emotions could be imagined. Looking at these faces, he controlled his doubts and solemnly gave his promise, "You and I together, never abandoned or separated." What answered him was a tsunami of shouting, "All hail the king!" And Mo's battalion gaped with wide eyes at this scene. Suddenly, Mo realized something that even he had missed before. King was not as powerless as the outside said. Because he wasn't just the Nether King, he was also the king of Mo Cloud Sea. King had his own faction that could match the Nether Realm. And Mo suddenly understood why the old Nether King was not worried about the new king and had been so confident. If Zhua Mo had led Mo Cloud Sea to take over the Nether Realm, he would naturally encounter resistance from all the factions of Nether Realm. However, if he took over the Nether Realm as its appointed successor, no one could fight against him. He was too strong. Even stronger than the Nether King back then. Those objecting to his reign were just insects. He suddenly thought with slight maliciousness how those people would react when they learned that King was also the king of Mo Cloud Sea. He really wanted to see it. With the King's Horn accompanying them, Mo's confidence immediately increased. And Mo didn't believe that there was anyone in the Nether Realm that could face him, Liang Wei and Fei Lei at the same time. However, he was slightly puzzled because he had never heard the names Liang Wei and Fei Lei before. He had only heard of Gongsun Cha's Vermilion Bird Camp and Bihan Sin Battalion. Was Mo Cloud Sea so strong? Were two people in any battalion of Mo Cloud Sea, even those that he had never heard of, this strong? Even an Mo, as strong as he was, felt slightly shaken. Zhua Mo did not know what an Mo thoughts were. He, Liang Wei and Fei Lei talked for a long time as he learned how difficult their years had been. With the guards they had, Zhua Mo didn't have to worry about safety at all. He decided to resolve another problem that he had thought about for 10 years on the road during this time. Rescue Pu Yao and Wei. Chapter 880, Pu and Wei's Mo's mind delved inward. The black gravestone floated alone in the sky above the sun tree. Looking at the black tombstone, Zhua Mo felt a wave of excitement. He had waited for this day for 10 years. The devious and proud Pu Yao and that chatty but black-hearted Wei had accompanied him on his path of growth. They did their best to give him their aid, even though Pu Yao liked to laugh and mock him at every step. 10 years. In order to earn that single chance for his survival, the two had paid the price of being tortured and imprisoned for 10 years. "I'm coming," Zhua Mo softly said to himself in his mind. His hand reached towards the gravestone. The gravestone suddenly gave off a strong repelling force. Thick black smoke flooded out and spread rapidly into the surroundings, blocking his touch. Zhua Mo's expression did not change. The sun tree, having already recovered its vitality, released faint golden light. The golden ray of light looked thin but was unusually powerful. The black smoke dissipated at its touch. The dark gold bead had disappeared as it had been completely absorbed by Zhua Mo. The sun tree inside his body hadn't just recovered its vitality. After absorbing the essence blood of the ancient sun tribe warrior, it had formed 3 suns. These 3 suns constantly released Shin power. The new Shin power was much purer than in the past. This was true God-level Shin power. In the 10 years, Zuemo had constantly tried to break through the smoke, but each time, he couldn't do anything to the eerie black smoke. The black smoke was the manifestation of the oath and sacrifice power. It was hard to deal with. Zuemo tried to use the sun Shin fire to refine it, but it was ineffective. Right now, Zuemo could easily suppress the black smoke with just Shin power. The black smoke continued to erupt and then dissipate. The entire process continued for a day and night. The gravestone finally did not give off any more black smoke. The black color of the gravestone seemed to have faded slightly. Zuomo's hand finally came into contact with the gravestone. A cold feeling came from his fingertip. Suddenly, Zuemo felt an extremely great power pulling him into the gravestone. Zuemo did not resist it. He felt his vision blur and then the surrounding world changed. A gray wilderness that was endless. There were sacrificial altars set up all over the wilderness. There was a pillar at the center of each altar, and there was a face carved onto every pillar. Some had wide gaping mouths, some were dignified and grave, some were malicious and cold. Each of the faces were carved in detail and was shrouded in an indescribable power. What was even scarier was that these faces were alive. Their eyes moved as Zuemo moved, and their expression occasionally changed. Zuomo's expression was ugly. There was a soul imprisoned in each altar. Looking over, the altars stretched endlessly. How many souls was this eerie gravestone imprisoning? Zuemo speed up. He searched around for the vibrations of Pu Yao and Wei. Yet after flying 5 days and nights, Zuemo did not find the vibrations belonging to Pu Yao and Wei. The sacrificial altars in front of him still stretched out endlessly. Zuemo did not stop. He continued to fly. Only after 3 more days did he stop. There were 2 sacrificial altars together in front of him. There were 2 faces on 2 pillars. Zuemo immediately recognized that they were Pu Yao and Wei. Long time no see. Zuemo murmured to himself, his eyes slightly red. The 2 faces were changing dramatically. They seemed to be experiencing great pain. Zuemo inhaled deeply and did not hesitate. He walked to one of the pillars and put his hand on it. When his hand touched the pillar, he heard a tsunami of screaming. The screams continued telling of the great pain, hopelessness, and terror. If someone was not as mentally strong as he was, they would be seeing illusions at this time. Zuemo did not seem to hear it. His gaze was determined. A thread of sun Shin fire flowed along his finger and wrapped around the sacrificial pillar. The sacrificial pillar immediately started to burn. The surface of the pillar quickly melted like a layer of snow, then the second layer, the third layer. One layer after another like skinning an onion. Zuomo's Shin power was being used up, but the sunlight of the 3 suns on his sun tree did not change. They seemed to release an endless amount of pure Shin power. Zuemo was extremely focused. He did not know the flow of time. Pew! The 81st layer. The pillar suddenly shattered into dust and disappeared into the air. A black figure shot into the sky. Ha 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 ha! Pu Yao, has returned. He was still as flamboyant as before, still as unrestrained, still as proud. The black fire twisted in the air and Pu Yao appeared next to Zuemo. He said with a disdainful expression, "You are so slow. I had thought that you would come after 5 or 6 years. As expected, I overestimated you." The same disdainful and mocking tone from 10 years ago. Zuemo almost cried. Pu Yao walked to the pillar restraining Wei and greeted him with a smile. "Wei, I'm out, it is so good outside. So enjoyable. The air is good, the weather is good, and I'm free, tsk, ha 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 ha." The face on the pillar in front of him violently contorted. It was clear that Wei was being greatly provoked by Pu Yao. Zhuo gaped at Pu Yao. The warm emotions that had just risen were completely destroyed by Pu Yao's heartless actions. Just how bad was this person? Zhuo shook his head and hurriedly ran to the next sacrificial pillar. Wei was most likely enraged by Pu Yao at this time. Familiar with the process, Zhuo was at ease and used even less time than the time before. Soon, the pillar completely disappeared. A figure charged out. Upon coming out, the figure immediately headed for Pu, the shout causing Zhuo's ears to hurt. "I'll kill you." Zhuo saw the situation. If he let these two continue, he didn't know when they would finish. His figure flashed and he appeared behind Pu Yao. Pia, he grabbed Pu Yao's collar. Then he flashed and appeared behind Wei to grab his collar. "Boy, release me. You dare to treat a great Sky Yao so." Pu Yao was enraged. A fallen Sky Yao is not worth as much as a dog. Wei smirked coldly and then his tone changed as he gritted out, "Azwa, let me go. I will cut this Sky Yao into pieces. Che, I will let you have the first move. The anger of a Sky Yao will cause the ocean to turn to blood. My ass." The two glared angrily at each other as spittle flew. Zhuo sweated as he listened. Fortunately, guess stronger than the two of you right now. When the two of them were arguing like this in the past, he could only stay far to avoid being caught in the middle. Now he could drag one by each hand. In this moment, Zhuo was extremely satisfied. Holding Pu Yao and Wei, he charged out of the gravestone. Zhuo threw the two into the mist-eye tablet and then quickly flew away. Not long after, the ghost mist child ran out with shock on his face. The two were fighting intensely in there. Zhuo had an uncontrollable smile at the corner of his mouth. The 5 Shinwood coffins were put into the death energy ponds full of death water. The pure death water continued to permeate the Shinwood coffins and turned into base Shin power to enter the bodies of the 5. Shi took out the ghost fire. The ghost fire floated in front of him. The female of the ghost fire appeared and knelt on the ground. She bowed. This person gave her unparalleled pressure. She felt shock and reverence from the bottom of her heart. You are living by relying on the ghost fire, and your last wishes have not been fulfilled. Speak, what are your last wishes? Shi said coolly. The ghost fire female's figure shook. She didn't dare to raise her head, but her face was covered in tears. She choked out, "This servant only wants to know how my son and grandson are doing." Shi nodded. His finger curled and a dot flew out of the ghost fire female's body. Shi murmured softly, his finger drawing in the air in front of him. This light suddenly exploded, and turned into a ball of light. A scene appeared in the light, and the male in the picture had a face similar to that of the ghost fire female. The ghost fire female was excited. She looked closely at the male in the picture as tears flowed down her face. The male in the picture looked to be in his 40s. He also had a child and they were slowly walking along a street. The picture was maintained for 15 minutes before disappearing with a pop. The ghost fire female wiped her tears. Her face was bright. She no-towered again to Shi. This servant has her wish fulfilled. If Elder wants me to do something, I will not retreat. Shi nodded. It is good you understand. I will gift you a favor. If you are willing, your son, grandson, and family line will not end. The ghost fire female said honestly, Elder, please speak. Shi pointed at one of the coffins. The female lying in that coffin is the beloved of the new Nether King. She is under the influence of the undying Shin punishment. It will be difficult to wake her. I want to use your soul to take the place of her soul, so that you will take the punishment on her behalf. This way, she would break free of the punishment, be of one mind with you, and can also control the undying Shin punishment. The Shin punishment is like a prison, the days will not be easy. However, your contribution will benefit your descendants. Knowing this, I will ask you one more time, are you willing? The ghost fire female said without hesitating, "This servant is willing to take the undying Shin punishment for mistress." A hint of admiration flashed through Shi's eyes. "Good." Then he did not waste words. He waved his hand and a Gui's Shinwood coffin was opened. Shi pointed into the air, and the ghost fire entered the purple chain mark on a Gui's forehead. A Gui's body shook. The purple chains that wrapped around her body abruptly burrowed into her body and disappeared. The scars on a Gui's face disappeared at a visible rate. Her ashen face recovered color and blood. A powerful presence suddenly surged. The base Shin power produced by the Shinwood coffin streamed into a Gui's body. A Gui's presence became even more astounding. Shi waved his hand and closed the coffin again. A thread of tiredness flashed through his eyes. But he did not stop. He picked up the dragon heart and floated in front of Wei Xing's coffin. The dragon heart beat strongly in his hand. Looking at Wei Xing, who was in deep sleep, Shi murmured to himself, "The dragon heart combined with the god-killing blood sword, something that is worthy of anticipation. Pity that I will not live to see it." As he spoke, he shook his head softly with regret on his face. His fingertip curled towards the right of Wei Xing's chest. A large wound was drawn out on the right side of the chest. Shi lightly put the dragon heart inside, and his hand brushed across the wound. The wound disappeared. Wei Xing's face suddenly became red as though it was dripping blood. A few drops of light flew out of Shi's fingertip and entered Wei Xing's body. Wei Xing's body shook and then became motionless. Shi closed the coffin again. Chapter 881, The terrible state of affairs. Pu Pu's home for battle generals was desolate. This place had long been forgotten by others. In the past, there would be many low-level battle generals that would come to learn and discuss, but following Pu Pu's disappearance, the popularity of the place faded. No one came any longer. Liang Wei was excited. Earlier today, Zuemo told him that Pu Pu was going to meet him. When he heard this, his strong heart couldn't help but suddenly jump. Unlike Fei Lei, while Liang Wei obeyed Zuemo's orders, Zuemo was not where his loyalty lied. In his heart, two people held special spots. One was the commander of Ice Frost Military Corps, his former commander that had favored him, taught him, and promoted him. The other person was the mysterious Pu Pu. He had met Pu Pu at his most dispirited moment. He had been relieved of his duties and was idle at home. At that time, wherever he went, he could hear mockery and disdain. Only days before he had been his most glorious. Charging across 10,000 li to accomplish a great victory and help reclaim the honor for the Yao. To trip and fall from the most glorious and blinding place, so completely. If he hadn't had a strong personality, the suddenly change would have completely destroyed him. But even so, he had been demotivated, and at that time, he had found Pu Pu's home for battle generals, and he encountered Pu Pu. An astoundingly powerful battle general. He still remembered his shock and amazement. He could not understand why such a powerful battle general would appear in such a little corner of the 10-finger prison. But after that, he started to learn how to fight from Pu Pu. He started to find his own shortcomings. He greatly anticipated each fight with Pu Pu even though he would lose terribly each time. From the terrible defeats, he quickly grew. He started to become steady, he started to break free from relying on his instincts to fight. He started to learn how to control large military campaigns, he started to learn strategy. He became stronger and stronger. He could clearly feel it. When Pu Pu gave him a chance to go back to the battlefield, to lead his own battalion, he still remembered the feeling of his blood suddenly burning up. For Fei Lei, the reason he waited 10 years was because of his mission and sense of responsibility. For Liang Wei, his reasons were because he thought of Pu Pu as a teacher. Even though Pu Pu had never admitted Liang Wei as his student, and he had never called Pu Pu teacher. When that familiar figure appeared in his view, Liang Wei's heart suddenly jumped. Pu Yao detected Liang Wei's arrival. He turned around and showed a small smile. "Not bad, I did not pick the wrong person in the past." Then he examined Liang Wei up and down. It looks as though you are much more steady than before. The hardships of these years were not for nothing. Liang Wei's mind was completely blank. His wolf-like gaze disappeared. He was like a clueless child. Pu Yao saw Liang Wei's excitement and said in a gentle voice with a smile, "Tell me about your recent situation." His gaze held pickiness, comfort, smugness. Liang Wei was another of his accomplished students. He could see that Liang Wei's presence had changed compared to in the past. Long ago, he had a high opinion of Liang Wei. In his eyes, as long as the excessive viciousness and impulsiveness was suppressed by his intelligence, the perceptive and eager young battle general would shine with astounding light. Pu Yao was very satisfied with Liang Wei. He had thought that an outstanding student like Gong Sun Cha was once in a lifetime. He hadn't expected to encounter another one. What made him even more proud was that the two had completely different styles, but they were both strong and had outstanding qualities. Pu Yao was very comforted. He had to show off to Wei later. When he spoke about the experiences of the past years, Liang Wei quickly calmed down. In a low voice, he described what he had experienced. Pu Yao became silent and the smile on his face disappeared. He hadn't thought that the days would have been so difficult. Pu Yao said emotionally, "This was really difficult for you." Pu Yao's words came from his heart. He knew that it was a simple matter to rely on this group of people and not starve to death. However, it was an extremely difficult matter to maintain the regulation and discipline of a proper battalion. Liang Wei's heart warmed, but he only smiled. It actually was all right. Fei Lei did much more. Pu Yao looked at his accomplished student. After some thought, he said seriously, "You have to be careful, the journey will most likely not be peaceful." The smile on Liang Wei's face disappeared. His expression turned serious. "Will people be against us?" Suddenly, Sand Puppet rose from the ground and appeared in front of Shi. The Hai Xan Bing contingency plan failed. Worse is that Jia Man's strongest commander, Richard, has sided with Hai Xan Bing. Almost all of Jia Man's faction has sided with Hai Xan Bing, Sand Puppet said. "Oh, that's normal. At this time, other than Hai Xan Bing, no one would dare to accept them." Shi did not seem to care. Sand Puppet looked at Shi's expression and was slightly puzzled. "You are not worried?" "Worried about what?" Shi smiled. "Do not underestimate Zui Mo." "I am not underestimating him," Sand Puppet shook his head. "No one qualifies to underestimate him. He was able to lead us out of the sealed extinction battlefield and then enter God level in such a short amount of time. However, he is not familiar with this area. Hai Xan Bing's factions is powerful. If he cannot defeat Hai Xan Bing quickly, the Nether Realm may descend into chaos, and your wish will not be completed." "No." Shi shook his head. "No? You are so sure?" Sand Puppet was shocked. For some reason, Shi suddenly shook his head and laughed before he raised his head and said, "The strangest thing about this person is that as you fight against him, as you throw out your trump cards, and watch as he throws out his trump cards, only to find that his hidden cards are better than yours. Even scarier is that the cards he holds are getting better and better." "It seems scary to hear," Sand Puppet rumbled. "Yes. So scary. Even I feel as though I cannot withstand this." Shi roared with laughter. His enemies must be in great pain. "All right. When will the 5 of them wake up?" Sand Puppet asked. "Maybe they will catch his coronation." Shi felt some regret. "Pity that we cannot go to the scene." Zui Mo was in a very good mood. He was very happy about rescuing Pu Yao and Wei. Even listening to the two argue and fight made the journey much more interesting. From Shi, he learned that eldest Xixiang, Agui, and the others were also quickly recovering. His mood became much lighter. His Shin power was recovered, he had established contact with Mo Cloud Sea, he had rescued Pu Yao and Wei, and eldest Xixiang and the others would wake up any day. Zui Mo felt that he had almost resolved all the problems that had haunted him in the last 10 years. If he could not be in a good mood now, what could make him have a good mood? He didn't have any worries about the journey to the Nether King Palace. In his view, he was just going through the motions. Shur's authority was still there, and he had plans set up. Zhuo only had to daringly accept Nether Realm. Suddenly, the troops stopped. Soon after, an Mo flew over with an ugly expression. "King, someone is blocking the road, they do not have good intentions." An Mo was experienced in battle and very familiar with the Nether Realm. Someone was daring to openly block the road. This was a terrible sign. It meant that the factions that opposed the new king didn't feel any fear. An Mo who had grown up in the Nether Realm understood the Mo of the Nether Realm. In Nether Realm, people only recognized power. In the past, many people were wary of the old Nether King and didn't dare to step out. If someone came out in public, it meant everyone would feel less cautious. The voices that opposed the new king would increase, and the situation would worsen. This was extremely detrimental to the new king. While an Mo knew that Zhuo was the king of Mo Cloud Sea, but far waters could not slake immediate thirst. In the Nether Realm, the only faction truly loyal to the new Nether King was in Mo's Western Jail Mansion. To fight against all of Nether Realm with only one mansion's forces, there would only be one result, death. But even so, anger rose from his heart. Someone dared to block King's troops. Around this time, Zhuo had received Shur's message. He raised his head and his eyes flashed coldly. For some reason, when An Mo's gaze met Zhuo's icy gaze, his heart tightened and he felt a pressure. "Oh, Shur sent a message, the Hai Xian Bing contingency plan has failed, we need to take care of Hai Xian Bing on our own." Zhuo's coldness faded and an easy smile came back on his face. Hai Xian Bing contingency plan failed. An Mo exclaimed. While he did not know what the old Nether King's contingency plan was, but it was not difficult to guess that the plan was the old Nether King's killing move. The killing move had failed. This meant that they had to face Northern Plains Ice Mansion. The pressure on an Mo suddenly increased. Also, Jia Man's leaderless subordinates, following that rich RTCH or something, almost all of them sided with Hai Xian Bing, Zhuo said with interest. An Mo could not control it any longer. His expression changed dramatically. "It is terrible. The situation was so worse it could not get any worse." An Mo finally knew why someone dared to step out and block the new king's troops. Originally, people didn't have enough confidence in the new king, and now their outlook on the new king was even worse. Richard was Jia Man's strongest commander. While he was weaker than an Mo individually, he was a match for an Mo in terms of skill at commanding battle. Other than Richard, the other people were also exceptional. Northern Plains Ice Mansion was wealthy and possessed outstanding Shin equipment before but lacked numbers. Now that they accepted Jia Man's Eastern Nether Mansion, their powers suddenly expanded and they were now the strongest faction in Nether Realm. Northern Plains Ice Mansion's shortcoming of not having offensive power was quickly amended. Also, Northern Plains Ice Mansion had outstanding battle generals like Zhu Nanyu. Even worse was that Hai Xian Bing had an outstanding reputation for her abilities and fame in Nether Realm. An Mo guessed that once Hai Xian Bing released the news, large-scale changing of sides would occur. Their situation was now extremely dangerous. Damn it! Chapter 882, Taking the Lead. An Mo spoke of his worries. The entire camp was silent. Liang Wei frowned. He did not fear strong enemies. In the battles of these past years, they had beat enemies that were better equipped or outnumbered them multiple times. However, the present situation was too terrible. It was not how powerful Hai Xian Bing was, but all of Nether Realm held serious doubts in the succession of the new king. In other words, Zhuo did not have enough of a reputation in the Nether Realm. If Darren publicizes your identity, maybe. An Mo couldn't help but say. Liang Wei shook his head. Not suitable. That way, the enmity may become even stronger. In their eyes, the king is an outsider. More people will oppose an outsider taking the throne. Many people couldn't help but agree. If it was not for the Nether King's personal appointment, even they were not willing to have an outsider be their king. Everyone had heavy hearts. When they found that all of the people in Nether Realm opposed them, they found how minuscule their power was. Hai Xian Bing was truly skilled. Everyone's gazes gathered on Zuemo. They had no plans left. Yet what surprised them was that Zuemo did not show any panic, and actually had a bemused expression. However, something seemed to be burning in that pair of eyes. Everyone stilled, King was. Before they could understand, they heard Zuemo speak, "From where we are, which is the shortest path to Nether King Palace." An Mo pointed at a route that had been labeled in red on the GM map. This one. This was our original plan, but now, the enemy most likely would have set up many obstacles on this path to stop us from reaching Nether King Palace. I suggest that we choose a more hidden. Zuemo interrupted An Mo's words and said decisively, "We will go on this path." An Mo panicked. "King. The enemy will have sent large numbers of battalions on this path. Even if we can break through, the time spent, we would miss the coronation." And Mo's commanders spoke in agreement to try to stop Zuemo. They were more familiar with Nether Realm. They knew that this path would be one that the enemy would heavily defend. Everyone even knew that an Mo saying the path would take time was just to save King's face. In their view, with the manpower they had now, they could not break through the others' defense lines. Liang Wei did not speak, but his expression was also one of disagreement. The rebels would set up great obstacles on the shortest route to stop them from reaching Nether King Palace. However, Liang Wei had settled down after the hardships of the past years. While he was slightly puzzled, he also knew that Zuemo was not a rash person. Also, behind Zuemo was a powerful genius like Pu Pu. How could he make such a common mistake? Liang Wei did not find Pu Pu around Zuemo. He guessed that Pu Pu was a hidden advisor that helped Zuemo through the 10-finger prison. Had Mo Cloud Sea's battalions already arrived? Liang Wei shook his head. It would appear that the arrival of Vermilion Bird Camp or Sin Battalion would greatly increase their manpower, but in Liang Wei's view, this was not a good move. Mo Cloud Sea's battalions were from the outside, but this battle was one internal to the Nether Realm. If Zuemo's identity as the king of Mo Cloud Sea was exposed, Zuemo would be considered an outsider in the eyes of most people. Hai Xian Bing only needed to make some waves, and the great majority of the people would side with Hai Xian Bing. No one liked to be ruled by an outsider, even if Zuemo was appointed the successor by the old Nether King. All the factions of Nether Realm would rebel. While Zuemo at present was weak in the eyes of other people, no one doubted his legitimacy as the new Nether King. They just had insufficient confidence in him. Zuemo looked around. His gaze flashed with strong confidence. They were no weighty presence, but people could feel the great power. Under this kind of gaze, everyone quieted. Zuemo smiled slightly and suddenly asked a completely unrelated question: "How did Shur unite the Nether Realm?" An Mo stilled and then had a reminiscing expression. "In the past, King led us across the Nether Realm and we conquered Jia by Jia. King was too powerful. No one was able to stop us. Everywhere we passed, all the factions submitted. Many of the people present had participated in the war to unite the Nether Realm back then. In that war that was not very long, Shur had been unrivaled. When they thought back to it now, they couldn't help but tremble from the bottom of their hearts. In their minds, that was a grand and glorious campaign. But soon, their thoughts came back. They felt slightly dispirited. Compared to the glory of the past, they were in decline now. Zuemo detected the changes in expression. He smiled, but then he quickly put away his smile. The light in his eyes grew stronger as he said seriously, "If that's the case, then just like Shur in the past, we will fight Jia by Jia on our path to Nether King Palace." All of the noise disappeared. The entire camp was so quiet the drop of a pin could be heard. Everyone gaped as they looked dazedly at Zuemo. They couldn't speak. Zuemo's voice clearly passed into the ears of everyone in the camp. His voice was not fast, not excited, not deep, but seemed to carry a power that could reach into their hearts. If only by conquering them will I be able to step onto the throne, if only by defeating them will they shut their mouths, if only battle can bring peace, if only power can make nether realm submit. So be it. Zhuo sat straight, his eyes becoming burning bright, but his tones still calm and flat, filled with great confidence. For some reason, the blood in everyone's bodies started to heat up, and their breathing started to become heavy. As Zhuo's expression became authoritative, his tones slowly became cold. The honor and glory of the king will not be challenged. Since only by washing the throne in their blood will they understand, then we will conquer them, crush them, destroy them. Use battle and death to command them, submit or die. The eyes of all of the Mo battle generals, including an Mo, turned red, their breathing deepened as their eyes widened. Among the Mo, the king was unparalleled. Zhuo stood up. The lines of his face were so cold they seemed to be carved from the stone. He looked around expressionlessly. Whoosh, everyone stood up. They threw out their chests. They hadn't expected that king would be so strong and domineering, their fighting spirits were roaring. I will lead you, fight Jia by Jia, to Nether King Palace. Yes. All of the Mo commanders responded. They were excited and wanted to move immediately. Liang Wei. Fei Lei. Zhuo said gravely. Present. Liang Wei and Fei Lei responded. Zhuo looked directly at Liang Wei and ordered, you will lead the king's horn to protect the flanks. Yes. The two unhesitatingly responded. Zhuo's cold and icy gaze was filled with indescribable pressure. Their hearts uncontrollably tensed. Everyone knew, the king was angry. The astounding pressure that Zhuo released caused every person's heart to instinctively tremble. For some reason, they also felt an unusual excitement and ecstasy. The previous Zhuo had a good temper and treated people well. Everyone liked him, but in their view, he was not qualified to be the Nether King because he lacked the domineering presence of a king. The Mo liked combat. They forever revered those strong. Logic was nothing, and not as enjoyable as fists. The entire battalion quickly gathered. And Mo's battalion contained almost all the experts of Western Jail Mansion. While they were not many in number, they were powerful. When they heard that King was about to lead them personally to fight to Nether King Palace, the entire battalion boiled over. They had heard enough of the rumors in the past few days. They did not fear battle. It should be like this. Everyone had the same thoughts. When they saw Zhuo appear at the front of the ranks, the cheers shook the sky. The entire battalion was energized, and everyone was extremely exhilarated. From now, King would lead them to fight to Nether King Palace. There seemed to be a ball of fire burning in Zhuo's chest. He was truly angry. Sure did not have much time. If they were constantly delayed like this, he would not be able to ascend to the throne of the Nether King before Shi's death. Zhuo decided to use the simplest and crudest method to solve the problem. Since Shi had united the Nether Realm like this back then he would do it as well. At present, he had the ability. He rode a copperbone Nether Bird King. This copperbone Nether Bird King was about the height of 3 people added together, the wingspan 7 zhang, and enormous in stature. The bird did not have any feathers, and the copper bones were neatly arranged in rows. Its skin was thick, and it was strong, extremely fast, but it had a terrible temper. Usually, it was only willing to let an Mo ride it. Yet when Zhuo rode the bird, it was unusually tame and obedient. The soldiers were extremely surprised. When an Mo handed over the reins, he was about Zhuo's safety, so he stood by Zhuo's side. Zhuo picked out a gold crystal sword from his ring and waved it a few times. His movements looked unprofessional and made an Mo worry slightly. Directing a battalion was not the same as fighting as an individual. He did not know what King's skill in this area was. King had never shown it before. Are you prepared? Zhuo asked without turning his head back. An Mo shook. Prepared. He glanced at Zuemo and asked carefully, King, should we ask about the other's origins? Zuemo glanced at an Mo and then moved his gaze away. No need. Meeting King's gaze, Mo's heart suddenly jumped. The coldness in King's gaze was completely undisguised. Even he, a battle general that had been through hundreds of battles, felt completely cold all over. Zuemo stared forward and said coldly, anyone that is in front of us is our enemy. Anyone that is our enemy shall surrender or die. And Mo suddenly felt a chill. Sitting on the back of Copperbone Nether Bird King, Zuemo raised the gold crystal sword in his hand. The golden sword flashing with blinding light under the sun like the king's banner. Everyone raised the Mo weapons in their hands with enthusiasm. The Mo weapons were like a forest and the killing intent rose into the sky. Chapter 883, the first battle. The enemy clearly hadn't thought that they would immediately start fighting without even exchanging a greeting. The mission they had received was to harass and delay the speed of Zuemo's troops. When Zuemo appeared at the front of the battalion, it caused a wave of exclamations from the enemy. What did this person want to do? The camp immediately shifted. Zuemo didn't even bat an eyelash. His upraised sword suddenly swung down. Kill! Zuemo charged out first against the enemy. The generals shouted in unison, kill! The battalion that had been gathering their power charged out behind Zuemo like a overflowing dam. The thunderous roars caused the enemy battalion to panic even more. Zuemo's face was cold and emotionless. Once again, he raised the sword in his hand. Everyone unconsciously raised the Mo weapons in their hands. King was like a power whirlpool. Their Shin power was gathering towards King at an astounding rate. They felt an indescribable sensation. Usually, they were the ones that sent Shin power. This time, they felt as though their Shin power was being drawn away. It was this unique attractive force that made them send out their Shin power without even thinking. These experts of Western Jail Mansion were experienced in battle and reacted quickly. Many of them quickly detected a problem and their expressions suddenly changed. The Shin power that each of them had sent out just now was 2 times the usual amount. Not good. They almost jumped in alarm. The Mo fighting method was different from the other 2 races. In a Mo battalion, each member would send Shin power towards the battle general, the Shin power would gather at the battle general, and then the battle general would release it in an attack. Due to the condensation of power, Mo battalion's attack was extremely strong. But the amount of Shin power that each Mo battalion member would send out was strictly limited each time. This was the crucial aspect of a Mo battalion's skill. Using a 1,000-member battalion as an example, if every person sent slightly less Shin power, the amount of Shin power that would gather on the battle general would dramatically decrease. But if everyone sent just a little more Shin power, it would be a calamity for the battle general. Shin power that surpassed the tolerance of the battle general's body would cause the battle general to die. This battalion had followed an Mo for a long time. And Mo's powerful body allowed him to withstand an astounding amount of Shin power. The amount of Shin power they usually sent was already greater than other battalions. Yet just now, they had seemed to be possessed, and the Shin power they sent was twice the usual amount. Even an Mo Darren would not be able to withstand such a terrifying amount of Shin power. The minds of these experienced Western Jail Mansion experts blanked in terror. They seemed to see King being overwhelmed by the Shin power and explode into countless pieces. The following scene stunned them dumb. The scene in their eyes would be deeply imprinted in their minds. They would never forget in their lives. When they talked about the past glories with their descendants, this scene would always cause them to lose focus, and their bodies to shake, and lips to tremble. On the back of the Copperbone Nether Bird King, a terrifying amount of Shin power shrouded King. Because the Shin power was so thick, King's figure even became blurry. But that seemed to be an illusion. The blurry figure quickly became clear. The Shin power that was so concentrated it was almost tangible furiously flooded into the sword in his hand. The upraised sword flashed with blinding golden light like a bright sun. They were not able to see the shape of the sword. King held the sun up high, his back straight as he looked down on the world. Zhuo Mo's face seemed so cold and hardened, as if it was made from granite. His eyes were so bright people could not look directly at them. The eyes were filled with dominance and invasiveness. As the Shin power flooded into the gold flow sword, the sword turned into liquid metal. It could not tolerate Shin power. But Zhuo Mo did not seem to feel it. His eyes looked unmovingly at the enemies in front of him. His right hand didn't even change from how it had gripped the sword. He could clearly see the terror and panic on the faces of the enemy. He could clearly see the openings in the battalion that had occurred due to chaos. He could see the enemy's timidity and lack of fighting spirit. His mind was unaffected. He was king. No one could stop him. Kill! The deep roar exploded in people's minds like thunder, deep and with soul-shaking power. The ball of light that was like a blinding sun in his hand moved down. The ball of light that was a mix of Shin power and liquid metal flew towards the enemy battalion. The enemy battle general finally regained his clarity. His face was bloodless. Motherfucker! He swore in hopelessness. All of the information said that the new king was weak. He wanted to say to those people, open your eyes and see, this is weak. But he knew that if he could not stop this attack, everyone would die here today. He roared ferociously and charged towards the ball of light. Just as he was about to collide with the ball of light, the light suddenly exploded. No one could describe this attack. The blinding ball of light suddenly exploded. Everyone suddenly felt their field of view turn completely white. When their vision recovered, a golden sea of light had completely consumed the enemy battalion. The liquid metal had turned into countless slender dark red lines that swept through in the golden sea of light, piercing enemy ranks. Everyone was astounded by the scene in front of them. They didn't even feel their bodies trembling instinctively. The weaker enemies had been immediately turned to dust by the golden light. The golden light was stunningly powerful, but what was truly frightening were the bright red slender threads. The gold flows of metal liquid had exploded into metal drops that were the size of beans. These metal droplets were expelled astoundingly fast from within the golden light, almost unstoppable, and able to penetrate multiple people in an instant. The enemy battalion seemed to have been viciously shredded. When the light dissipated, there were less than 300 people standing in the enemy battalion. They were scattered around, their expressions blank as though they did not understand what had happened. Everyone knew that these people were finished. This battalion was finished. A short silence appeared on the battlefield. The surviving enemies had not recovered from the first attack, and the Western Jail Mansion experts behind Zhuo Mo had been completely stunned by Zhuo Mo's shocking attack. Mo. The cold voice broke the battlefield's deathly silence. Mo shook and his thoughts came back. His face still held traces of disbelief. If he had only felt loyal to Zhuo Mo before due to loyalty to the king, now, he was completely won over by Zhuo Mo. He bowed on the Mo steed as he responded, his voice trembling slightly, present. 15 minutes, clear the battlefield. Zhuo Mo's tone was unquestionable and decisive. Mo was not discontent at all. He accepted his orders without hesitation. Yes. He turned and picked a few dozen steeds to charge towards the enemy battalion. When they came in front of the enemy battalion, those remaining survivors seemed to not realize the arrival of death. They stood there soullessly in shock. Mo's heart felt a wave of coldness. He knew that King's attack just now had completely destroyed these people's spirits. Even if these people survived, they would never step onto the battlefield again. Fei Lei's body shook. His eyes were wide as he stared at the scattered battle formation. He did not know that his face was covered in tears. King. This was a king. He finally saw the birth of the Mo's new king. Everyone was completely won over by the domineering attack. Such a strong attack, this was king. Even they would not be able to do anything against this attack. He willingly submitted. He suddenly felt that it was good fortune and glory to be able to participate in this campaign. Liang Wei's mouth was wide but he could not make a sound. The blood had completely left his face. His fists were balled tightly, and he didn't even feel his fingernails biting into his flesh. While he was humble on the surface, he was still proud inside. This pride came from his strength. His present strength was that of a top battle general. Facing any kind of situation, he would not be left without any solution. This was the source of his confidence. Yet Zuo Mo's attack gave him an unparalleled blow and shock. He found that, no matter what method he used, he would not be able to withstand this blow. In front of absolute power, his plans and tactics were of no use at all. This conclusion was a great blow to him. How was it possible? How could there be such an unreasonable attack in this world? Yes, unreasonable. No matter how you responded, no matter what formation you used, no matter how you moved, the other only needed this one attack. A feeling of helplessness that he never had rose. Liang Wei had a grimace on his face. This is God level. So strong. Pu Yao murmured, slightly unfocused. While Zuo Mo had rescued them, the process of being rescued was not as shocking and spectacular as the attack displayed in front of them. Wei quickly recovered. He noticed Liang Weiss grimaced. Liang Wei has received a great blow to his confidence this time. Zuo Mo's unreasonable attack had completely upended the battle general system that Liang Wei had studied for so long. The blow was unparalleled. Pu Yao's thoughts came back and he recovered his calm. No one can help him on this. If he could overcome this mental barrier, then he can truly elevate himself to the same level as Gongsun Cha and Bihan. His skill right now isn't bad, Wei said. A great battle general needs a big heart, Pu Yao said coolly. Zuo is really strong now. Wei couldn't help but praise. His tone was filled with accomplishment. Even they had not thought that Zuo Mo would grow to such a level. He is fated to be king. Pu Yao said seriously. The battlefield was quickly cleaned up. And Mo's strength against these defeated soldiers was destructive. No one was left alive on the enormous battlefield. Everyone looked towards Zuo Mo with heated gazes. Nothing was more powerful than the truth. Starting from this battle, everyone believed that this was the journey of legend. No one could stop them. Fight their way to Nether King Palace. On the back of the copper-bone Nether Bird King, Zuo Mo's expression was still cold as he sat like a statue. His expression had not changed after the victory. Under everyone's heated gaze, Zuo Mo once again took out a gold flow sword. Without any flourish, the sword pointed forward. The cold order was like flame that caused everyone's fighting spirits to rise. Advance. Chapter 884, Advance. Advance. All troops, advance. The cold order was like the hottest flame in a world of snow, causing every person's passion to burn. Zuo Mo did not look at the corpse-covered battlefield and charged at the front. A vicious bronze mask hid his face. This emotionless face combined with the cold commands caused him to appear every more terrifying. His black cape flapped in the wind like dancing black flames. The shouts of the battle generals rose and fell. They were soaked in sweat that evaporated in streams of mist. They waved their strong arms, their eyes wide, as they motivated their troops. Pay attention to the rank shape. Advance, do not fall behind. Keep up. Every member gritted their teeth as they furiously urged on the Mo steeds under them. Their gazes were locked onto the figure at the very front of the battalion with passion in their eyes. The entire army was like a raging metallic flood that pushed forward at an astounding speed in the sky. Seeing their shocking presence, people would believe that any battalion that dared to stand in their way would be flattened immediately. Advance. 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 No one can stop us. Fighting spirit burned in everyone's eyes. The wind howled in their ears. These battle-hungry and brave Mo experts steered their Mo steeds and continued to maintain a perfect offensive formation. Far in the horizon, an enormous battalion entered their field of view. This battalion was more than 10,000 people, it was definitely a big battalion. The distance between the two quickly decreased. At the front, King had no intentions of slowing down. Suddenly, a large sword appeared in King's hand. Everyone's spirits suddenly reached a peak. They all knew what King's action meant. This was the signal for battle. King accelerated. Everyone urged on their steeds to keep up with King's speed. The wind rumbled in their ears, their blood vessels expanded, their blood boiled, the shin power in their bodies was restless. The enemy hadn't thought that Zhuo would not consider the great enemy number and still decided to charge. This battalion's presence as it charged was astounding. Even with the battle generals in command, the subordinate members still instinctively panicked. They had never seen such a furious and focused charge. Zhuo suddenly raised the sword in his hand. The cold and grave shout spread through the entire battlefield. Kill! The people behind him raised their weapons and angrily shouted, Kill! The large sword in Zhuo's hand seemed to immediately light up. Under the blinding golden light, Zhuo was like a god of war descending to the mortal world. Zhuo's sword came down. The blinding golden light entered the enemy battalion and suddenly exploded. The golden sea of light consumed a great number of enemies. Countless drops of golden liquid metal ripped through the enemy battalion, and a large part of the enemy battalion immediately fell down. Another sword appeared on Zhuo's hand. He raised it again. Kill! He charged at the front towards the enemy battalion. Kill! Everyone shouted angrily and followed closely behind him. The metal flood charged furiously and smashed into the enemy battle formation without any finesse. In that instant, limbs and bodies flew everywhere. No one could stop one of Zhuo's attacks. Zhuo was like a powerful bull that charged back and forth in the enemy ranks. With every ball of light he threw out, an empty ar of ground would appear in front of him. The gold flow swords could not withstand the shin power. Almost the moment they were brought out, they would turn to liquid. Zhuo was not frugal. The liquid metal contained terrifying power, there were many of them and so they were the best weapons. Zhuo only felt the surroundings were full of enemies. He did not care. He only threw out the golden balls of light rapidly. The handfuls of golden metal liquid filled with shin power formed a killing net that was inescapable. The enemies were cleaved down like wheat. But then they charged over from all directions and were cut down again. Zhuo's eyes were filled with blood. The rhythm of his hands increased and he continued to charge. Charge! A furious and sudden charge. The enemy was not able to muster up an effective resistance. Even though countless people threw themselves furiously at Zhuo, they were still not able to stop the charge, not even able to delay Zhuo for a few seconds. Zhuo's vision suddenly cleared. Zhuo stilled and then realized. They had penetrated the enemy formation. They won. He led the battalion to quickly turn around and faced the enemy battalion's back. The enemy battle formation was in chaos. They had not managed to turn around. There was a great hole in the battle formation. Inside the hole, corpses were piled up in mountains. That was a path of blood created by Zhuo's charge. Zhuo suddenly raised the sword he had just placed in his hand. Kill! The people following behind him had bloodshot eyes. They raised their weapons and shouted angrily, Kill! Zhuo's sword quickly turned bright and the ball of light expanded. It was unprecedentedly bright. The size of the ball of light was 2 times what it had been before. The golden ball of light was like a sun that had fallen from the sky and landed in the enemy's chaotic battle formation. Boom! The blinding light illuminated the world. Terrifying vibrations of power came. Even an Mo and the others felt slight stinging pain. When the light dissipated, there was nothing left alive on the ground. How is it? Are you still managing? Fei Lei wiped his face as he asked in concern. His entire body had been soaked in sweat a long time ago. Liang Wei panted furiously as he tried to calm his breathing. His throat burned, his mind completely blank. Moments later, he felt as though he had recovered slightly. He squeezed out a smile, Still all right. Beside him, the other Yao battle generals panted like fish out of the water. The bodies of Yao could not compare to the Mo. Their physical bodies were weak. This shortcoming was evident in such a sustained and rapid pace of battle. Too fast. This pace. Liang Wei did not believe it. Even in his long journey back when he invaded Xiuzha territory, the pace of battle and the intensity was a fraction of this. The king's horn was only responsible for the flanks and their mission responsibility was much lighter. Many times, they only needed to keep up with the pace of the main troop. But even so, almost all of them were exhausted. The main group that King led was even more terrifying. Their record was destroying 12 battalions in a single day. This battalion was like lightning. No one could stop them. A battalion of 1,000 would not be able to delay them for long. Usually, after the destructive charge, the enemy battalion would have shattered and turned to dust. Later on, King even stopped wasting time on eliminating the survivors. Charge. A furious charge. This kind of speed had never appeared in this history of war. It was not reasonable. Not reasonable at all. But this unreasonable charge was one that no battalion was able to stop. Liang Wei gradually moved from the initial shock and disbelief into acceptance. However, Liang Wei's gaze unconsciously landed on King. King was sitting on the back of the copper-bone nether bird king as though he had never moved. Wasn't King tired? Could one person's power reach such a level? Liang Wei wandered off into his thoughts. Zhuo jumped off the back of the copper-bone nether bird king. No one had managed to stop them from advancing for 7 days and nights. The morale was at a peak, but Zhuo knew that their bodies were also completely exhausted. Even Mo's face showed rare traces of exhaustion. Rest today, we will depart tomorrow morning, there is no need to arrange for patrols. Zhuo ordered. No one doubted his orders. Everyone took all the time they could to recover their Shen power. The entire camp was silent. Sunshine passed through the ranks, spreading green light. When the green light entered the bodies of those injured, their wounds quickly disappeared. Zhuo was not idle. He had not used up a lot of energy. The recovery rate of a god-level expert was something that other people couldn't imagine. He took out materials from the ring and started to focus on forging Shen equipment. The Sun Shen fire was extremely tame in his hands. This was the first time he was forging after his Shen power had recovered. The feeling was different once again. In the past, he had the god-level cultivation but he had no Shen power. He had been very limited. The feeling of being unrestrained was so good. Under his thoughts, Shen power manifested into complex and fine patterns that rained into the fire. Moments later, a gray Shen equipment was finished. The Shen equipment was not beautiful and refined. It had clean and rough lines as though the item had been casually pieced together from bones. It looked very simple. However, each bone was covered in exquisite patterns that imbued it with beauty. After the first item was finished, Zhuo's speed started to accelerate. Later, he was able to forge multiple pieces at the same time. He didn't hold back on any of the high-level nether materials that he had gotten from Shi. He threw them all into the Shen equipment. From fighting in the last few days, he found that the Shen equipment of his subordinates were terrible in quality. Soon, the Shen equipment piled up into a little mountain in front of him. He did not rest and continued to forge when the sun rose from the horizon and the first ray of sunlight broke the darkness. Mo and the others woke up. They were stunned by the mountain of Shen equipment in front of them. The morning light fell on Zhuo's body. Even though he wore a mask, they could still feel his focus and effort. Inside the flickering flame, a piece of Shen equipment was quickly taking form. King had not rested, and had been forging Shen equipment for them the entire night. King. Mo bit his lips. He was filled with emotion. He only had one thought, even if King told him to go die right now, he would not hesitate. Have everyone put it on, prepare to depart. Zhuo's tone was as icy as usual. If they had only followed and revered King because of his terrifying power before, now, in this moment, everyone swore inside that they would forever follow their king. They took off their damaged Shin equipment. After the continuous battles of 7 days and nights, their Shin equipment was covered in dents and damage in many places. After they put on the new Shin equipment, the entire battalion was transformed. These MO experts caressed their Shin equipment and grinned dumbly. High morale, a strong formation, they all gave off great confidence and had strong fighting spirit. In 7 short days, Zhua Mo led them on a string of victories that seemed like a legend. He had transformed this battalion. They were heated, strong, fearless. They had confidence they could defeat any opponent. Their strong belief meant that they would not surrender even in the most hopeless of situations. All hail the king.